Hey everyone, I wanted to take a chance here to actually open the door on a conversation that is really important. We'll get to the regular episode in a few minutes, but Justin put together a brief segment that he asked me to play before we started up tonight. Please also be sure to stay around until the end of the episode. The hosts were given a very special gift by the Focus Fire Chat moderator team, and they wanted us to record our initial responses to opening them all at the same time on stream. I've embedded that recording at the end of the episode. Here's Justin.
Hey guys, it's Justin Sane 0516 from Focus Fire Chat. I can't tell you what a year it's been. Many lasting friendships have been made, amazing experiences have been had, and I can't thank all the Focus Fire family enough for the support along the way. I know we've had a fair amount of laughter, but right now I'd like to talk about something a little more serious that's personally affected me over the past year. In the last 6 months, I've managed to remove myself from a relationship that was both emotionally and at times physically abusive. This wasn't a passing relationship. It was a marriage of 10 years. Needless to say, it took a lot of will to break free. It took my experiences within this community to remind me that I was a worthwhile person, and that I in fact deserve something better. Something more. If you or someone you love is in an abusive relationship, stand up. Say something. Cause a scene. Demand better. Because you deserve it. You aren't perfect. No one is. But you deserve better. Stop rationalizing. Stop making excuses. Stop the lies and the fear. Because life is too short to live in the darkness. And I'm certain, even without knowing each and every one of you, that we all deserve the light. If you or someone you know has been affected by domestic violence, call the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-SAFE. Once again, this is Justin Sane from Focus Fire Chat, saying stop the hurting and start the healing.
So thanks for taking the time to listen to us, and I wanted to also take this chance to say that if there's ever anything that any of you feels like needs a serious discussion, all the hosts here, as well as any of the moderators in the Discord server, have an open door policy. Just send us a private message over on Discord or email the team, and we'll be more than happy to discuss anything with you. So with all that being said, let's go ahead and get started with the normal episode.
Welcome to Focus Fire Chat. Explore together.
Welcome back for episode 66 of Focus Fire Chat, recorded live on December 30th, 2016 on twitch.tv. Big shout out to the live chat here. Thank you so much for spending your evening with us. This is your host, Blue Crew 86. Alongside me, we have the flowery voice of Justin Sane 0516. Justin, how have the drops been for you?
You know, they've been pretty good. Tried my hand at the hard mode raid and went up a couple light level points, so that was good. Oh, and I finally got a grasp of Malik with Hurt Chain earlier today. So, yeah.
He's always excited to get presents. We also have with us Mel. Mel, how's the winter treating you over there?
It actually hasn't been too bad. They threatened a bunch of snow right before Christmas, and then it kind of went, and so it kind of did something for a little bit of the day, but nothing really stuck. So I was hoping for a white Christmas, and I kind of just got mud. So, nice. But it's been getting cold. We're supposed to get some more snow, I think, over the weekend and early next week. So, but my biggest yay is that now the first day of winter's over, so we're getting more daylight every day, and this makes me feel much better.
Yeah, we took a trip down to my family has a ranch down in Texas. And so we were down there for Christmas, and my 3-year-old was like super stoked because it snowed right before we left. And then we got down to Texas, and like he's like, "Yeah, we're gonna get snow." He wasn't too sad. If you guys are following me on Twitter, you saw a picture of him on my horse, and he was like completely goofing around. But like we got Christmas Day, we woke up and it was like 85 degrees outside. I'm like, sorry, dude, snow's not happening. It's not gonna happen.
I think on Christmas, so like I host every year. So December is like always kind of a crazy month for me in like my personal life because I'm cleaning and doing all that stuff, blah, blah, blah. So I think it was Christmas Eve. I went to bed and it was like, I don't know, like 3 or 4 in the morning. And I remember looking at my phone and it told me it was like 10 degrees outside. I'm like, and you're not even snowing. Like, can you at least be cold with a purpose? Oh my gosh. I was so irritated. And you just, it's getting to that point where I don't do well in cold. I don't know why I live here really. And when I go to bed, I take a heating pad and put it in the bed and then turn it on full blast because my feet are so cold that I can't sleep and they hurt. So
Justin
I put a
doesn't
heating
do
pad
good
there.
in cold either.
No. I'm small boned, so once I get cold, it's there. I'm there. That's where I'm going to be the rest of the day.
It goes down into your core, like you can't get warm. So my goal in life is by the time I'm ready to retire, we take our retirement, we go someplace like Hawaii or someplace with a beach and beautiful weather all the time. And I just live there and I die there. So, because I feel like I'm putting in all the time for snow. No more snow. And I don't ski or snowboard. So like those of you like, oh, you got Tahoe right there in Squaw Valley. And I'm like, I don't care.
All right. Well, given the topic, of course, we had to pull in a couple of chat members. Demoel, you ready to discuss how Dreg lives matter?
I am. Though maybe not these dregs.
Okay. I'm so proud of you for that.
Yeah, thank you for the distinction. It's going to make this a lot easier.
Can you clarify the distinction? Because now I'm really confused.
Oh, we will get into that.
We'll get there.
Can you remind us real quick where everyone can find you if they want to continue tonight's chat with you?
On our Discord, of course, and on Twitter as @Demoel.
Perfect. And we'll link all this contact information in the show notes as always. Demigod 257. I know you're busy getting ready for the Focus Fire Chat book club discussion next week, so I'm glad you could jump in tonight. You ready to get into the thick of it?
Oh yeah, gotta love the Elixir, even if the devils kind of suck. I'm always down. Yeah, dregs. Woo.
All right, and how about you? Can you remind us real quick where everyone can find you if they want to continue the topic?
You guys can find me here on the Discord chat, or you guys can find me on Twitter @Dr. Lore Josh.
Awesome. Well, of course, the topic of today's chat is going to be an exploration of the infamous House of Devils. Before we get into that, however, I do have a few housekeeping notes. In our last chat, we took a look at the vehicles that our Guardians have the ability to pilot throughout the Destiny universe. If you missed that and have any interest in hearing our thoughts, as well as my unique pronouncing of a jump ship's class name, as I was made aware of, please be sure to check out www.focusfirechat.com for archives of all previous chats, as well as links to the other aspects of Focus Fire Chat out in the internets. If you don't mind, please give us some feedback on iTunes just to let us know how we're doing as well. As many of you already know, Focus Fire Chat is a cross-community gathering where the intent is to offer a week-long, in-depth view of a particular subject from within the lore of Destiny and other games. This chat begins every Tuesday morning and runs until the following Tuesday, with topics decided by the group via a poll that begins every Friday and ends on the Tuesday morning of the new chat. Every Friday at about 10 p.m. Central, we get together to stream a recap of the previous week's chat for those who are unable to participate. Please be sure to also give some support to the other podcasts in the Guardian Radio Network found at theguardiansofdestiny.com. Those include Guardian Radio, the official podcast for the Guardians of Destiny, Guardian 1, and Ghosts and Echoes, which also has the Destiny Audio Grimoire. Our next chat is going to be a discussion on the lore of the Vex themed strikes. So with all that, let's go ahead and look at what information we have about the Fallen House of Devils. Lorebot, let's go.
Query Grimoire Database. Results found. Displaying on screen.
Thank you, Lorebot. The House of Devils. The devils take whatever nature has yet to claim. That's from Master Rahul, everyone's favorite Smurf. These are the scourge of the city, the shadow below our walls. This is the house that led the battle at the Twilight Gap, the house we tell our children about to frighten them into behaving. The House of Devils have now devoted great strength to pillaging the Cosmodrome in Old Russia, hunting for something buried below. If they are not held in check, whatever they find might prove the city's undoing. Excuse me.
Foreshadowing. What?
Yeah, we had no idea. We didn't have a clue.
So
what was going to come of that?
Yeah, I mean it's there's not a ton to really unpack that we haven't kind of already touched, in the long running episode history. Obviously devils were the predominant force at Twilight Gap. Again, not really a surprise. If you look at the Grimoire card, you'll notice the color structure of this particular house is very red. I don't really know at this point, just from this card so far. I mean, is there anything else you guys think we should bring up, or should we keep going?
Nothing we won't get into in just a bit.
Okay. And then that kind of, and I guess, jumping ahead there, Mel, I know we have a little bit of a small faction within the house specifically that we have encountered quite a bit recently. You want to take the...
Yeah, sure. So our next card is the Devil Splicers. The Fallen put Splicers, their most revered scientists, to work investigating and understanding Siva, the Golden Age wonder discovered in the Cosmodrome. As the Splicers' knowledge of Siva's potential began to take shape, a rift grew between the technological religious leaders and a younger, more ambitious sect of the rank and file Devil Splicers. The leaders saw in Siva a new god to worship. The Devil Splicers saw a way to become one with the very technology they worshipped. Siva was a means to a greater end, evolution.
Yes.
So that is exactly obviously the Devil Splicers, which are new, what we've encountered so far in the Rise of Iron. Essentially, when they started discovering Siva, which I know we've already discussed at length in our Siva episode, it was pretty much they saw a way for them to become the gods that they worshipped, and then they felt that they have become higher, that they were more worthy, and then there you go. That kind of sums it up, basically, I feel, for the Devil Splicers. I mean, you guys want to add anything else onto that?
Yeah, just real quick. The Splicers in general is not a collective, I guess you would call them, that is specific to the Devils. Every single Fallen House has one of these secret collectives, and there's actually a Grimoire card specifically just for Splicers. And that card, I forgot to throw that in the show notes, so I'm going to read it just real fast. It's a very short card. It says, within each Fallen House is a secret collective of tinkerers, bioengineers, and scientists devoted to the evolution of their species. These devout engineers are known as Splicers. The Splicers' purpose is found in the unraveling of biological and mechanical truths. They tear into systems to reveal their value, either as tools for survival or as advancements worthy of their reverence and deification. So, yeah, I mean, like Mel was saying, this is kind of their entire end game is to find a way to deify things. But it also, when we were talking with enemy weapons too, we were talking about how the Fallen were really kind of, you can tell with the design of their weapons, how focused on survival they were. this is another kind of point that kind of points into that. And Mel, I know you probably had something to throw in there.
Not anything as riveting as yours, but I always like the term of using the splicers for its relation to when you're kind of splicing DNA. And if you remember a lot of the missions that you do, I remember the one specifically where they took the ogre's eye out and made their own weapon out of it. And they were doing all these different experiments on the hive, trying to take the best attributes and trying to infuse it with themselves. So I always loved the play of their name in relation to what they're actually doing. And it reminds me of BioShock. So that makes me happy too.
Yeah. So, I mean, and again, splicers are not unique to the House of Devils, which actually is another point that I think was kind of a spinfoil theory that we'll get to later within the chat about Siva in particular. But Dimmy or Damo, you guys have anything?
No, I mean, I think we're just covering the basics at the beginning here. You guys are doing a good job.
Thanks. I like to think so.
Very much.
Dimmy, do you want to, while we're on the topic of splicers, obviously Wrath of the Machine is a good direction to take.
All right, so here we are, Wrath of the Machine. Intercepted fallen signal. Fellow houses, fellow Elixni, we have found a means to apotheosis, to become machines. Siva can make you strong, but we can show you how to wield it, to free yourself from the bonds of ether. Find us in the wasteland and bring us an offering of Siva. In return, we will bring you to our chamber of perfection, and we will free you. Which, if you listen, or if you read some of the Siva core fragments, is kind of ironic that would even be said. But yeah.
But they're just trying to break the chains of ether.
But his axe is free?
Yeah. No, he's not. And why did they give him spider legs if he never goes anywhere? He teleports. He doesn't need spider legs. That's just me.
Because they look awesome.
Good. Okay. That's a good point.
You know what it reminds me of? Have you guys watched the Star Wars animated series and when they brought back Darth Maul?
Yep.
Doesn't that remind you of it?
I actually think it's a reference.
I wouldn't be surprised because he actually has like
I just view him as a giant drider.
Let's not bring in the darkness that is Forgotten Realms.
Yeah. I've actually got a question for Demi on this one. What definition of apotheosis do you think he's referring to? The elevation to a divine status, or like the pinnacle or the highest point of the development of something?
It would be the former, in my opinion.
Agreed. Actually, they're definitely trying to become gods,
and I think that's very evident in just the Elixni culture of worshiping, to some degree, worshiping machines, and in this case, being servitors. So I see no reason as to why they wouldn't want to mimic that same sort of presence that they might have amongst each other.
Well, this actually brings me to a theory about the Elixni. Is I don't think that they had machining or computers before the Traveler visited them. Personally, which is I think why they're so fascinated by them.
Well, that would explain the deification that kind of went down.
That would even explain the terminology of what they use.
Yeah.
By calling the Traveler the Great Machine and so on and so forth.
Like, I think that they were probably just like a hive society that was very primitive, and the Traveler dropped by and was like, hey, how about I show you these cool things? And they were like, holy crap. And then...
That makes sense, because if you think of the servitors are their gods, wouldn't they have made their god in the likeness of the Traveler?
I don't even think the servitors are actually their gods. I think that they worship them now because they, like you said, are in the image of the Traveler. I think that they think they're a connection to the Traveler, even though they sound like
they also
talk
generate
that they're
the ether too.
Yeah, but they generate the ether, but not well.
Right.
That was probably their original designation, and now either one of my theories is that they aren't necessarily intelligent, and they're just obeying the commands of the rest, or they are part of the evil, and they are making their choices. And
the servitors.
Yeah.
Well, because the prime servitor I think has sentience and definitely.
But sentience doesn't necessarily equate to knowing exactly what's going on around them. I just am curious. Okay. Like we know that the Archons and the Kells are evil, right? We know that they have evil intentions because we've literally heard them say it, but we've never heard we have no indication of servitors' personalities, if they even have them.
Was Calyx? Did we have any indication of Calyx's personality?
No, I've checked pretty thoroughly.
Okay, because I know, obviously Sepix, we don't really, have too much.
We just murder him over and over and over and over
repeatedly, and then they bring So we'll get to that too. But because servitors were also obviously pilots. That was what is that Crucible map that I just went blank?
No, yeah, you're right. The Drifter,
right?
My favorite Crucible map.
Yeah, that's the flippy map. When you die, you do flippies, right?
Yeah, because there's no gravity. Yes,
no gravity.
Thank you, Justin.
Everyone flips away.
There you go. No problem.
But yeah, so the prime, because I always viewed the primes as part of the triumvirate of the fallen houses. You have the Kell, the Archon, and the prime servitor, and the Archon kind of keeps the peace between the prime servitor and the Kell, because the Archon is the mechanic.
Well, that's actually what led me to have this theory, is that what if keeping the peace is also basically just misrepresenting what's going on, right? We don't have any example. We know the Kells want murder and rampage and revenge, and we know the Archons are literally insane.
Mm-hmm. Well, we don't know the ones that we've run into.
Yeah, which is a pretty good representation, but we don't know any of the motivations of the servitors. We don't know how they're represented or what they thought about.
Well,
because they were always utilized by the others. Because when was it? It was Calyx and what was the other servitor line in the Reef Wars? It was Calyx and another one, because Calyx wasn't Calyx the priority between the two?
Yeah.
So yeah, because they use that to overwrite the other servitors, but Orbix. Thank you, Hurtchain. Calyx and Orbix. So, we've always perceived them as being, I see what you're saying, because we've always perceived them as being something separate. We've never really seen them particularly taking a foot or taking a step themselves.
Correct. And we've never seen any motivation out of them. We get a lot of motivation from the Kells and Archons through the strikes and some of the Grimoire cards, but we don't have any examples of the servitors behaving in a way that is necessarily evil.
Yeah. Demi, I know you had something to throw in there.
Well, I just wonder if the servitors even can have some sort of reasoning behind their actions that's of their own. Because I know, or I'm trying to remember with the House of Wolves, they had one of the lesser Calyx that they were trying to raise up as a new prime. So for me, that brings to mind, are these simply manufactured, and do they sort of develop their own sense of individuality afterwards, so that they might lead the remaining group of Eliksni that's with them? Or, is there someone who is always there tending to them? Because even with, and I know this is about all the other houses I'm saying, but even with House Exile, we know little of House Exile to begin with, but we don't know if they even have a servitor, to what degree of leadership that servitor might have, or if it's just there. So I think if anything, maybe our best example could be Sepix, and that's only to the degree that we've fought him twice now, and it seems to have something. But yeah.
And then Damo.
And like, so them not necessarily knowing the situation and being sentient can go hand in hand, right? I mean, think about military leaders, right? They don't know everything, and if the intel given to them is incorrect or misrepresented, they could do horrible things, in and thinking that they were good. So it could be the thing that their AI doesn't necessarily understand the greater situation because, again, they were built for piloting and feeding, which is kind of a weird combination. But
right.
But it might be that they don't have the parameters to understand exactly what's going on. They may be sentient and smart, but they might not.
They might not have emotional intelligence.
Yeah, and from all we can tell, the Elixni's ability to repair and innovate is probably somewhat limited. May not be the right word, but not.
That's a fair point too. Is so like the servitors that we are experiencing might not be within what the servitors were originally. They could be a couple together.
And they also could just be that they're still running off of the same programming that they did in the utopian Elixni world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
which would make them very easy to manipulate.
Right. And so, like, yeah, just another pun in pins and chat are talking about, exactly that. The programming could be human-like intelligence, but they don't really have emotion necessarily.
Or they don't have a real understanding of the world.
Yeah. Justin?
No, I was just going to say, I think sometimes we like to assign personality to things that doesn't necessarily have those traits. I don't really see how, from a programming standpoint, a servitor having any sort of emotional intelligence or a personality would be a worthwhile thing. I think the Fallen being an inherently kind of primitive culture when they were visited by the Traveler, I think it ends up being that they might have assigned a lot to these servitors and worship them as gods when they were just in reality just programmed machines carrying out their assigned functions.
Well, it could be. We do have some indications that they have sentience and intelligence because there is a desire to follow them. And I mean, you could take a toaster to a primitive people that hypothetically exists and has never seen technology, and they'd be pretty impressed with it. But after a day or two of it not telling them what to do, they'd probably move on. Mm-hmm. So I think that there has to be something to them to be that intelligent. Though I do agree that assigning personalities to them is probably erroneous.
Yeah. Well,
no,
go for it.
Because I think that we do have a desire to assign not just personalities, but understandable personalities. And that's kind of what I'm trying to indicate, is that these might be so alien because they've been that way since the Elixni were the Elixni, that they might not be something we can assign something that we understand to.
Right.
I
was going to say.
And then one last thing.
Yeah. Go for it.
I think most of the worship probably, in my opinion, comes from, again, them looking like the Traveler and behaving somewhat like the Traveler. I don't think that was originally the way it was.
Yeah. And I was going to say real quick before, going off that segue of worship, but I was going to say too, the other thing is that, we have the Exos who are machines but are human. So they have personalities, but they're not biological in the sense, like as far as we know. And so it's not something that's out of the possibility for something to be completely a machine, but still have a degree of sentience and humanity, or not humanity, but psychological depth, I guess, to have emotion. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility for Destiny's universe, at least. So, but before we go down that rabbit hole, going off the worship concept, did you want to go to the quarantine card, Damo?
Yes.
Oh, wait. I
One
think Demi
moment.
had something real quick.
Okay.
No, just want to say in my quick little research on servitors, I think we can all agree that they do have sentience. Sorry, like stumbling on my words. But this little blurb just comes from the wanted high servitor card. Honestly, we don't understand their sentience, but they're of high value to the fallen. Treat them as strategic, infrastructure. Oh God, I can't speak today. I feel like Justin. That needs great. Oh, Justin's not back yet. Good, I'll let that one slide. But yeah, so they do have a level of sentience. I do agree with you guys. Assigning them personality might not be accurate, but there is something beyond just the machinery to them.
Yeah. Cool.
Okay,
Alright.
so quarantine.
Yeah.
Short one. The Devil Splicers machine priests have established ritual sites for the study, worship, and proliferation of Siva throughout the Plague Lands. It is unclear if these rituals have a specific purpose or if they are simply another form of experimentation in the Devil Splicers' continuing efforts to understand and control Siva. Interfering with a Splicer ritual could bring about an aggressive response, especially if the priest's act of worship is ended swiftly and without mercy. So this actually ties really heavily into what we were just talking about.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
In this, they're literally describing the Fallen's science as religious.
Which, okay, so here's an interesting thing. I was actually talking to someone about a completely different topic that is interestingly tied into this concept of rituals and destiny. Because if you've listened to me go on these rants about the light and the metaphysics of light, you'll notice, and the Hive do this too. The Hive have rituals to summon their paracausal capabilities. The Guardians have rituals to summon their paracausal capabilities, which is explained when you summon your super, how every single Guardian uses the same gestures and this has the same super. There is no uniqueness to any particular Guardian's super because everyone's using the same ritual. And the interesting thing for me here is that this is talking about Fallen. Now the Fallen are starting to use rituals, but they're using rituals for Siva, which is not a paracausal thing, but they may view it as a paracausal source. Do you see the tie-in there that I'm kind of talking about?
I think you're fixating a little too much on paracausal, because I think we have evidence that Guardians perform rituals for other reasons too.
True.
Right?
Yeah.
And the Fallen have a long history of machine worship, right? I mean, ever since Sepix, since the game launched, right? When you go into that Sepix thing, those guys are all prostrated before.
Yeah. Okay.
Sepix, right? They're sitting there worshiping him, and then I think there's a few other mentions of it that are eluding me. And the Hive might be an exception. The Hive may be mostly entirely paracausal.
Yeah, because the Books of Sorrow, that's how the Books of Sorrow say that's how they got their paracausal capabilities, because that was the response that the Worm Gods gave. And then, throughout King's Fall especially, you see that's like the just bludgeoning tone. There's no subtlety there. It's all over tone of worship. And, especially the War Priest is the best example. So, yeah, I guess that's a fair point.
I think actually too, it's worth noting that when you're dealing with a group of people who are especially superstitious and I'd say religious, not like those two things go hand in hand, but when you're dealing with them, what they call a ritual could be as simple as programming, rebooting, making changes to programming. You could be calling it a ritual, but really it's just what the process they have to do to harness the Siva. And they might do ritualistic things while they're doing it. And, It's just, I think they assign that. It doesn't really mean that there's any substance to it.
Right. Demi, I know you had something.
Well, just to say that, their rituals could just be some sort of them exhibiting part of their culture. I mean, if for them, they view a lot of these, if we're going to call them paracausal, just because we're talking about Traveler, if they're viewing them as these paracausal entities, then it would make sense that they would be worshiping Siva. They worship machines on a daily basis. Why would they not worship something that, to some degree, replicates the identity of machinery?
Yeah. And then Damo.
So this kind of ties back into what I mentioned earlier, where I was saying that I don't think that they had machines before the Traveler may have showed up. It may also be that the only ways they know how to interact with science and technology and research and development is through a system of reverence, right? Because they may have literally learned, they may have gone from, tribal people with, obsidian weapons to, information age essentially overnight.
Yeah, that's a fair point. And I mean, that would fall in line with the entire order of splicers.
Yeah.
Like very, very heavily. I mean, because, a ritual, and I threw this up in the show chat. A ritual is, the definition is just a religious or solemn ceremony consisting of a series of actions performed according to a prescribed order. So, yeah, Justin's response is actually what I was just about to say. You can have a ritual to do anything. It doesn't mean that there is necessarily something, I don't want to say supernatural, but something higher. A ritual is just a habitual process. There's a number of psychological diseases that actually involve rituals. We call them tics. Because there's something that they have to do. Severe OCD is one of those disorders, and that's something, like the person who has to touch the doorknob 3 times before they open the door, something like that. That's a ritual, but there's nothing necessarily higher. So I definitely see what you guys are saying, is that this could just be a ritual in something like that definition, not necessarily a ritual in a paracausal supernatural sense, right?
Yeah. You didn't want to use my example?
I was going to, but I didn't want to steal your example. So yes, Justin's example is he could have a ritual to start his car, but it doesn't mean that there's any substance to the ritualistic part of my car starting process. But there is, Justin, because your car is very important to you. And never mind.
I could pray to the gods of methane. And
my gosh.
It wouldn't mean that it would start any more than when I just normally turn the key.
Well, hey, you know what? Talking about praying to things that aren't going to listen to you. You want to talk about Archon's Forge? Yeah,
let's get down to it. The Archon's Forge is an ancient fallen rite of passage, twisted to utilize the Devil Splicer's latest discovery. Fallen seek to improve their station within the Splicer's quickly evolving caste by making offerings of dormant Siva to the Forge. Their worth is then tested in trial by combat. The offering's quality, fused, enhanced, perfected, determines the severity of the challenge, and in turn, the level of augmentation the petitioner will be granted should they survive. That a guardian would dare challenge the Forge with offerings of their own is an affront to the Splicers that they will not take lightly.
And they will not reward you with anything.
And it's just a Court of Oryx style little twist to their existing fallen meritocracy.
Yeah,
a dash of Siva thrown in.
Just a dash, right? Just a little bit.
Just a little dab.
Sprinkle it on.
Little dab will do you.
Okay.
So it's a bit of fallenness.
Yes. If I could just play devil's advocate, I would say yes.
You mean Dredgen's advocate?
All right, I'm done here.
But Mel, you're going to talk about the Shadow Thief.
I am. Okay, so our next one is the Shadow Thief.
Talking
Revisited.
about dabbling Siva.
All right. Varix has brought unsettling news. The Devil Splicers have used Siva to reconstruct an old foe. Tanix the Scarred has become Tanix Perfected. Tanix's crew has joined the Splicers. They're using Siva to reanimate his body and overtake his territory. Lord Saladin says you were indispensable in Old Russia, Guardian. We thought you should be the one to handle this. Commander Zavala and Ikora Ray. Yeah. So, I don't know what else to really say besides the fact that, hey, there's a thing here. I need to go take care of it, which is what they're always telling us anyways. So, but it was interesting, though, that they can use the Siva to reconstruct an old foe. It's essentially bringing them back from the dead, assuming that we killed them. Kind of, sort of. Wasn't he thrown into the? No, he wasn't. Never mind. Continue on.
Shadow Thief was.
He was shot.
He was shot a lot
in the face.
Yes.
And if you did it the right way, you got a really cool Hivey Hive sniper rifle, and possibly a really cool ship.
Nah, never got the ship.
There's no ship. The ship is a lie.
Ship is a lie. Yes, it is.
Okay. Funny story. Okay.
No,
so,
if it's about you getting the ship really easily, it's not funny.
No, it's not about me. That's what makes
I got the ship pretty
story
easily.
funny. Okay,
Yeah, but
so
I already hate you, dummy.
One of our clanmates did not have the gun, didn't have the whatchamacallit. And so like, okay, and thank you. And then it came on and he happened to be out of town. I was like, well, give me your login information and I'll get in and I will play as you and we'll get you the thing. I was like, okay. And so we did it and we went in and like literally the first try, we're able to beat it. And he got the black spindle and he got the freaking ship and he didn't even have to do it. And I ran that mission so many times, like as my character, and never got the ship. I was so butthurt. So butthurt. That's my story. It's not a very fun story.
Cool story, Mel.
Awesome story. That's
You know what? Okay. No more story time.
So just another pun in chat actually brings up a really interesting point. So does Tanix still have no house, or is he now an honorary devil?
I mean, they're debating whether he's alive or not in the strike.
Well, I guess that's true.
So
Yeah.
he may be literally
How could it do that?
and nothing
Yeah, Blue.
anymore.
Have you seen Weekend at Bernie's? That is
Or the Rick
Shadow
and Morty
Thief
version, which was
revisited.
pretty hilarious.
Yeah, that is the Shadow Thief revisited. It's just they're just parading him around that ship, that catch.
so that
And,
the contract killer won't kill him.
I actually liked that the question they posed whether he was ever alive,
Mhm.
Oh, okay.
which could just be them stirring the pot, but it's kind of an interesting little jab. Makes you think.
Well, it seemed too much like General Grievous to me.
Well, and that was one of the things that I think the chat also talked about and we'll get into that obviously much more, but were the Devil Splicers the first to actually hit Siva?
Unless someone else did and said, "This looks like Bad News Bears. We're not going to mess with this."
Or did Tanix actually get an aspect of the nanotechnology? Because remember the splicers, this isn't actually the first time that we've seen splicers. I think it was the wolves had splicers when they were breaking into the vault. Tanix is obviously got something going on, even before all this. So, but I know that was part of the chat for a little bit too. So yes, I broke a chat apparently.
Way to go!
Yeah. Night's not complete until that happens.
Yay!
Demi, do you want to talk Devil's Lair real quick? Bring us back into something that we know a bit about.
Sure, here I go. Devil's Lair. The Fallen will continue to claw at the walls of our city unless we strike them down. Beneath the ruins of the Cosmodrome, in the shadow of an old colony ship, we've located the House of Devil's Lair, and the High Servitor feeding them their strength. We must destroy this machine god, and send their souls screaming back to hell. Commander Zavala. And this is the original iteration of the strike, which we did back in beta, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's a very fun strike. I was happy that it was brought back.
Mm-hmm. And I guess this is also kind of, when we first, it is when we first see the giant eyeball in the sky that we all come to love.
It's also where we just beat down the devils until they can't get back up.
It was kind of depressing if you actually think about how quickly we kind of put the devils down. It's like, oh, there's the Archon.
You got to think about it. They lost their Kel after Saint 14 head smashed one of them. We had killed their Archon, very early on as like level 2, so that must have been like humiliating for them. And then we just go in and just kill their prime server. I mean, God, they
at level 6?
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
and all of that could have been avoided for them if that captain and Vandal in the opening scene of Destiny
just sniped us.
Had just sniped you with his
run.
Well, no, because our ghost would have just resurrected us.
Yeah, that's true.
And they're dumb enough not to actually attack our ghost. So yeah, it would have been different timelines and all that stuff.
Oh, no, we're not talking timelines.
Don't do that.
We're not talking timelines. Mel, you want to talk about Sepix Prime?
Sepix Prime? Septitink? Yes, I can. Sepix Prime. I never believed a machine could know hate. Floating, emotionless, arbiters of life and death, servitors are quasi-religious automata defended by the fallen with zealous ferocity. The exalted servitor of the fallen house of devils, Sepix Prime, has long been rumored to dwell deep within the bowels of the Cosmodrome. While the Cals are the political leaders of the fallen, servitors are said to be their gods and their source of life-sustaining ether. A prime servitor is a target worthy of even the greatest sacrifice. Those willing to accept such a challenge will have the eternal gratitude of a city desperate for relief. Sepix Prime relies on fanatical reinforcements and its own considerable tactic abilities, including a short-range teleport and a powerful directed energy weapon. Aim for the eye and break contact if it turns your way. They really make him sound much scarier than he really is.
He had a huge critical spot.
I mean, like, he's like the easiest. When you get this strike, you're like, yes, easy strike. But so yeah.
Yeah, and that kind of goes in line with the earlier conversation about servitors and their sentience.
Right. Well, and also where they fall within the hierarchy within the fallen. Like this one actually says servitors are said to be their gods. So, I mean, it's more than just like this, higher being is literally the thing that they worship too.
Yep. And then go for it.
I was saying, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, I think any group of beings that relied on a thing or an object or something that, seemed to maybe have some type of sentient. We're just discussing that. We're pretty confident that they don't have sentience, but that it gives them their life. And if you think about gods in the sense of what they do, they give life to things, and then that's for why they're essentially worshipped, for their god, for their life-giving abilities. So, I mean, it makes sense for why they, worship a servitor for their ether. And so it makes me wonder, if they didn't need the ether or the servitors didn't supply it, would they be worshipped as much?
I don't. Well, because the other thing that servitors do is they pilot the ships, which was really important during the period after the whirlwind for the Fallen. But I think it also kind of touches on why the Archon is such a coveted, or not coveted, but such a politically powerful position, because the Archon is basically the head mechanic, I guess you would, of the Fallen houses. And so the Archon, so there's a pseudo triumvirate between the Kel, the Archon, and the servitors, or the Prime Servitor. And the Archon, this is what Dan and I were kind of talking about earlier. The Archon kind of is like he's the head, quote, priest, but really he's a mechanic. He fixes the servitors. He repairs them. And the Kel holds the Elder Cipher, usually, or they cipher, which is basically the key through which ether flows. So the servitor generates ether, the Archon repairs the servitor and translates the servitors, sounds, and then the Kel takes that ether and distributes it to the most worthy of the fallen, or the fallen, which is why different levels of fallen are different sizes, because ether actually allows them to grow physically. So that's why a dreg is so much smaller than a vandal and a captain, and a Kel and an Archon and all those different classes. That's why they get progressively bigger, because they technically are getting fed more ether. And it's also what Damo just loves about the Kel, because it gives them a complete dictatorship really over the remainder of the Fallen. So that's where the Kel's source of power is. And then, those three of them, it's like a true Roman triumvirate. They never really get along, but they can't exist without each other. So it's like it's a very tenuous treaty between the three of them, if you would. So, but and you can see within this card the role of all these pieces. It doesn't really mention the Archons in this particular card, but exactly. I think you hit it on the head. It creates life. It talks, ether is something that they absolutely need to survive. So, Divvy is, the Kel is Caesar, the Archon is Pompey, and the Prime is Marcus Crassus. So.
Wow.
Yep. It's true. It's so true. They really do have an uncanny parallel to a Roman triumvirate with the political structure.
Yeah, I always liken it to take it back to like Aztecs.
Oh,
you've got the emperor, the shaman, and the deity. The emperor can make laws and he can say all the things he wants to say, but if the shaman speaks for the god, and then you know what I mean? So who really has the power here, I guess, is the question.
They need to implement the separation of church and state. Maybe that will help.
Well, yeah, but they weren't that far along.
Well,
they didn't build their pyramids right. They were stair-stepped.
Their religion might not be like anything we conceive of originally.
Yeah.
Right. It may have actually been a religion. Like I'll use Superman here actually, because on Krypton in the Superman universe, their religion was science, right? Their gods were all about benefiting people and advancing and enlightening people, not like some of the examples we have here on Earth where they kind of go the opposite direction. So,
sorry,
their original religion might not have been so restrictive.
Right. And I can totally see that again, but I totally see that because, and kind of going what you were saying about their repairing capabilities too, and we not knowing what the effect was on the servitors because they are machines. It's kind of like what happens with the Exos. Progressively, we don't know how the Exos were created. We don't even know how to repair them. If we didn't have ghosts, the Exos would not work because they're the only ones who can. What?
I mean, we have non-Guardian Exos.
No. I'm saying without Ghost, we couldn't repair Exos. Not resurrect, repair. Like, there's
Do we know that?
Oh, hang on. I think I have that. Hang on.
I mean, I don't want to go
bring
too.
out your Clovis Bray Wikipedia pages.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Braynet.
Because I remember reading something about the Ghost. Maybe it was the.
Well, maybe we should
Yeah.
do this later.
While you wanna-
Justin, you look at the upgraded version of Sepix. I'm going to look at the
There you go.
options to upgrade our Exos.
Yeah. So after we face Sepix Prime, we get an updated version of him that looks like he drove through a yard sale, named Sepix Perfected. The fallen House of Devils had a firm grip on the Cosmodrome until brave Guardians began to push them back, taking out their leaders and engaging the Devil's crews at every turn. Despite continued success against fallen leaderships throughout the Cosmodrome, no victory delivered a more crushing blow to the Devils than the destruction of their god servitor Sepix Prime. But Sepix has been reborn, augmented and perfected through Siva, and set to usher in the conversion of the House of Devils from desperate scavengers to Siva-powered soldiers. Through Sepix and those like it, Siva will change the world. And then I have just a quick little blurb here from Shiro about Sepix. The House of Devils marked you as public enemy number 1 after you trashed their Prime servitor. But your old friend Sepix Prime is back, and apparently better than ever, thanks to the Devil Splicers and Siva. Yeah, so we got an updated Sepix with just a whole lot of Siva dangling off him. And it's really not that far-fetched to think that Siva could bring him back because he's completely inorganic as far as I know.
Yeah. One of the things that's interesting about that strike actually is that that's the first time we get an indication that the Devils and the Splicers may have gone separate paths.
Okay, yeah.
Because there's that speech from Shiro on the way up where he's discussing why they would have Siva'd Sepix, and he's saying as an offering to the other Devils.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm with you. Well, I think, just like anything else, there's probably these purist devils who are like, yeah, you can almost look at Siva in a very extreme sense, like steroids, right? So when you have steroid use in sports, yes, it yields very positive results, immediate positive results, but there's always those who say, yeah, I'm not doing that to myself.
Yeah.
Like, this is not something that will end well.
Well,
There's always cooler heads.
Well, and it's even worse than that because it's not. I mean, that's a good example, but it's also if you combine that with impersonating a deity as well, right? It's not just like loading up on steroids; it's also putting on like Thor's clothes and parading around as him.
Yes, yeah.
So.
I'm still looking.
All right, let's go into this after.
Yeah. Well, because I did find an interesting tidbit about the Exos, but yes, we're not going to get into that because I will never stop talking about that one. Did we want to, Demo, did you want talking about Sepix Perfected? Did you want to do Ghost Fragment Fallen 5?
Sure. Frozen on the monitor was an image of Sepix Prime, the massive Prime servitor that had been as a god to the House of Devils. Where once its plating was pristine, carefully maintained by the Archon Priest and his acolytes, it was now splotched with red growths. The ether power emanations that once glowed strong and pure were obviously corrupted. Guardians had slain this god, and now it was reborn through Siva. Varix of House Judgment sneered at the abomination. Golden Age project, yes, he clicked, turning to the crow. His field agent was a young awoken woman. Technology of old Earth, learned from the great machine. The Elixni burbled to himself in mocking laughter and gestured with his lowered hands. You do us proud. Go, speak with other crows. Learn more about these devil splicers. She nodded, a small smile on her face, and left the chamber. Varix allowed himself a moment of silent contemplation, looking at the now closed door to the information suite. As always, it was only lit by the light of a dozen or so monitors in the room. The Fallen interlocked his upper hands. He bowed his head and he allowed himself to really feel the impact of that abomination on the screen. He never would have allowed anyone else to see this, but it hurt, seeing the horror that was Sepix made anew. His people had fallen. Varric stared at the image of Sepix, and, as he had done before, he wondered what would have gone differently had he been there among his people. Could he have stopped this before it happened? Could he have found them a better way? Must be a better way for Eliksni, he clicked quietly. Must be a way to stop the fall.
Dun, dun, dun.
So, I mean, this is one of those places where we have a solid indication that Varix is trying to help his race.
Mm-hmm. Well, and we kind of knew, if you pay attention to Varix at all, you kind of knew Varix was on that side already. But it's interesting to me, for me, it's interesting because this is a person who, or not a person, a fallen who is not obviously in the House of Devils, viewing the Devil Splicer's work. And it almost, which the intriguing thing here is that House Judgment, we've definitely talked about this, is like House Judgment kind of seems like this weird house of the Fallen that kind of is in every single house. Like they have an agent kind of in it, we've talked about how they kind of seem to have an agent in every single house, and they don't really have a Kell or anything like that we can tell. But at the same time, though, Varix doesn't seem to know anything about the Devil Splicers, which is interesting to me. Or do you think it's just these Devil Splicers that he doesn't know?
I think he's saying that derogatorily. I think there's disgust in his tone is what they're trying to communicate there.
Okay, I see. Like he's separating these Splicers from the rest of the Splicers.
Well, because if they were once a hallowed thing, then yeah, it might... Because he even goes on to say that this hurts him to see. So it might be that this actually disgusts and upsets him, and he's trying to, extricate them from himself.
Right, but because, the thing with Varix is he's very obviously knows what a splicer is. He has 2 mechanical arms.
Yeah.
I mean, he is himself literally a product of splicers. Not a final product, but he has obviously had encounters with a splicer of some kind, because that is the only way for him to have those mechanical arms, is to have them spliced. Whether or not he did that himself, or however they came about, that is, when we read the Splicer card, that was exactly what the Splicers did.
Yep.
Was the augmentation. So I mean, I think I'm kind of in agreement there. I think he may be just segregating out these Splicers from the other Splicers, the normal Splicers.
Well, yeah, because I think he doesn't really want to believe that his race is done, so to speak. So I think that you're right. I think that he very much wants to remove those worst elements from the race before considering it, so that he can still, so he can still believe in his people and redeeming them.
Yeah, but it's also, he sees this revered, life-giving entity that he's more likely worshipped. Not specifically Sepix, I don't think.
But that class.
That type of entity that has signified for him life and prosperity his whole life. He's just seen this bastardized version of it paraded before him that's just been completely and utterly corrupted. You know what I mean? And I think that's what really hits home for him. And I actually think before this, he knows with his mind how far they've fallen. But in his heart, emotionally, I don't think it has hit him how far his people have fallen until he sees Sepix with Twizzlers hanging all over him.
I think it's partially that, but he did see He did see Skolas, and he reacted much the same way
Yes.
there.
Yeah,
I was just about to say
very,
that.
very disappointed at Skolas.
I don't think it was as intensely though. I think
this is pretty.
with the splicers, I really think he's looking at the depravity of a certain sect of his people, and to some degree it angers him, and to some degree it saddens him. And we do know from Skolas that with those later cards, he makes it his own personal mission to sort of revitalize the Eliksni, not the Fallen, but to bring them back to their own glory in however fashion he might do so. And that's why at some point he laments, what would have happened had he been with Skolas. If all of the Eliksni respect the House of Judgment, then he might have done some sort of conciliatory work with Skolas to better whatever efforts that Skolas was pursuing. He sees what the Devil Splicers have done, and I think to some degree, it's sort of like what Alibi said in the chat. He might not have somebody else within the House of Devils that can really pass on this information, and maybe he just might not know. We sort of assume that Varix is this fountain of all Eliksni and Fallen information, but there's clearly a lot about the Kings that he doesn't know, and a lot about it is inferred, even inferred by Aldrin, who seems to have a better idea of what the Kings might, or what the Kelov Kings might be planning at some points. So I think we as the gamer and as the audience for these events sort of put a lot on Varix, and we tend to think that Varix should know everything, and even if he's not saying anything, we are inferring what we believe from Varix, and Varix might just not know. And Varix is reacting to this as we are reacting to it, contemporary to what we're seeing and what we're going through. And so when he says we need to stop this fall, it's because he already knows that this has gone on too far. And Varix has obviously committed himself to a group or to a cause from which he thinks that he might be able to better his people in the future. And part of that will be seeing what the Guardians can do from there on, what might happen with the rest of the Fallen. I think a big wild card for the Fallen is they're still House Exile. There's still the remnants of House Winter and whatever might be left of the Wolves. We have the Devils, of course, here, and it looks like the majority of them have been doing what they can with Siva and so on and so forth. But if we're going to take the now most powerful sect of the Eliksni being the Kings, and we know that they are in their own certain area and they're plotting their own advance, so on and so forth, then what might happen if, like several people have thought of, if Varix steps up and might break out of his mold of being of House Judgment, and who knows, he might be the king, he might be the Kell of Kells. He might choose to lead his people, at least gather them and bring them towards a leader who he can properly recognize. And it's clearly evident that he can't do that with the Devil Splicers, and probably not with the Devils at all at this point.
Yeah, and the other thing is, talking about like the difference of Varix's response between Skolas and then Sepix. I think, Demi, you're spot on is in regards to like this is Varix learning about something, because within the universe that he exists, he is not all knowing as far as the Fallen go. And I think that's kind of the frustration of being a spy master when you don't have spies in a particular area. But the other thing is like this is just a thought that just kind of occurred to me, is like he was disappointed and he was disgusted with what happened with Skolas, mostly because of like just the lack of honor and the just complete disregard for civilian casualties. Skolas purposely attacks civilian sinners and bombed them, and he just attack, and he's just like cruel, and he was just butchering and murdering things. But the thing is that throughout that entire thing, Skolas depended on the individual Fallen underneath him agreeing to follow him. The problem with Siva is that once it takes hold, you lose your individuality. You're consumed by it. So you are no longer free. You are putting on shackles that are even more powerful than the shackles of ether. You know, we were joking about the whole "we will free you from ether" thing at the beginning of the episode, and that's kind of the thing that I read about Siva is that you are literally putting on a yoke that is even more powerful and even more heavy for you to carry, thinking that you're going to be freeing yourself. And that's what I think when he sees Sepix, it's kind of like, oh, well, if even a prime servitor can fall to this is something, this corruption is something that is too powerful. It's not something that we can, I can convince the individuals fighting under Skolas. I can convince them, one by one if I have to, but you can't convince cogs in a machine. Right? Does that make sense to you guys?
Yeah.
I mean,
that makes complete sense to me because Skolas was operating under a caste system that I think Varix probably agreed with. The system, the way that he did his business, maybe no, but the guidelines and kind of the structure of his command was not really different from anything the Fallen had seen thus far. It was his actions that he disagreed with. This is like the perversion of their whole society.
Well, and it's also the perversion of their entire. Hang on, I don't have the words. It's a perversion of the entire concept of progress in their mind, right? Because you're fighting for freedom, but in order, it's the whole paradox of why do you have war? Why do you have a war for peace? Like that they don't equal each other. You can't wage a war you cannot force peace onto people. Peace has to be something that is agreed upon, because if you force peace on people, there are going to be rebellions against that. Damo, I know you have.
So I think that both this event and the event that broke him originally and made him defect, I think that they're both big perversions of their society, right? Because this is like a religious perversion. Not only is it corrupting the very life that they live off of, but it's also them raising themselves up to be divine, which is sort of dodgy. And then for Skolas, it was the feral rage and hate that he was feeling, right? Which is, I mean, that's never going to lead to betterment, right? That's not going to make situations better. It's just going to make it awful.
Yeah, no, there's another interesting Mystic Rose in chat actually made this point is, she asked, do we know if Varix was ever a splicer? I'm actually, as soon as she said that, I went and I pulled up the Varix the Loyal card, and it's actually, I think it actually is possible that Varix was a splicer. He was in House Judgment, obviously, we all know that, and he says that he traveled with the many houses before wolves. We move across the dark, follow the light, advise Kel's worshipped primes. I mean, that's kind of what I get the feeling a splicer does.
It could be. I have.
There's definitely open for interpretation because there's not.
Yeah, I personally think that House Judgment was like a calling and probably all consuming. I don't think that they had any other roles, which would mean that they weren't splicers, but it is definitely not a clear-cut thing.
The other reason I'm kind of thinking that it might be because there was it wasn't Hunt. It was Skolas defeated. Skolas defeated, he's carving the amethyst.
Oh yeah.
And like he's actually like he's cutting. Well, he cuts himself, but he's actually like he's making something with the amethyst. And like I think the only experience really with us that the amethyst that we see is as a consumable. trying to remember if there was a specific flavor text on that with the royal amethyst. No, there wasn't.
But we know that they're valuable.
Yeah, we know they're like super valuable. Yeah, it just says clusters of rare glimmer lace gems from the Queen's crystal barrows. Well, glimmer is. I'm kind of following a rabbit hole there, but I was just thinking. I was like, there might maybe I don't know. I'm gonna get in trouble with all that spin foil. So back to the House of Devils. Before we get too far off track on Variks is an amazing topic. So that
me and Dan will hear at the same time. We start talking about Commander Cody like it's nothing.
So that's a lot of the grimoire that is like primarily dealing with the House of Devils. Now, that is not the only grimoire that the devils are mentioned. We're not going to, I don't think we have time to read all the grimoire that the devils are, because the devils are definitely one of the more well presented fallen houses in the game. And I'm going to talk about that in just a little bit. But the other cards, in case anyone is interested, that they're mentioned is the Ghost Fragment Mysteries 3, Exodus Blue, Ghost Fragment Exodus Blue, Ghost Fragment Fallen 3, Variks the Loyal, obviously, Skolas Defeated, again, there's Restoration, the card Exodus Blue, Old Russia, Lord Silumar, Yavik Wolf Baron, Paskin King Baron, the Gone to Ground, and the Hakan Precipice. So all those cards actually are talking, or they have a mention of some kind to the devils. So it's no surprise that when I talk about this next thing, it's going to be a rather long list, and that's the known individuals within the devils. Some of these individuals even have their own grimoire card, especially because of the Wrath of the Machine raid, because those are all devil splicers. I'm just going to kind of go down the list here. We do have, so there is a couple. I think there's a couple that we don't know if they are specifically House of Devils. There is the unnamed Kel, who is killed by Rezyl Azzir. This individual could have been another house, simply because within the card it does speak of it speaks of a falling banner that was unknown. And at that time, the House of Devils should have been known, so there's a possibility that that's a different Kel. But then going forward from there, we have Sulcus, who is the infamous headbutt recipient. We have Rixus, who's the Devil Archon. And I think Rixus, we kill him in the mission Restoration, which is the second mission of the game. So we actually kill him. That takes us to Axis, who is the Archon Prime. Again, we kill him. You'll note there's a very common theme with the devils that we know about. Axis was actually Wrath of the Machine. Sepix, or Demi, did you have something you wanted to toss in?
Nope, you can continue.
Okay, yeah, just let me know. Okay, so Sepix Prime, again, killed by the Guardian in the Strike Fire team with Devil's Lair. He gets brought back, as we've kind of discussed, with Sepix Perfected. We kill him too in the Strike, which is Sepix Perfected, that Strike. Then we go to, I guess, not the triumvirate positions, but the more notable positions. That brings us to a individual Baron who was a Splicer Baron called Dressix. We killed him in the Sepix Perfected Strike. The Devil's High Emissary, which is actually a really random individual that you see in a quest called Bad Blood. We kill him too. Actually, here's a rare one. This person is not dead that we know of, and that is Aramis, the Ship Stealer. This is a Baroness, a Devil Baroness. And as far as we know, we think that she is stuck in the Prison of Elders. She's not dead, though, as far as we know. So She's on the super special shortlist that I have. The other individual who's on the super special shortlist of individuals who are still alive is Vargas, the Clever-Headed. This is an actual prisoner of the Prison of Elders. We do not encounter him. And he does not have any particular title. He's just the Clever-Headed. Apparently, Varix outsmarted him and put him in prison. The other individual who may be alive is Ron, who is the Devil Captain at the end of the first mission that you see at the very end. You just see him. And that's the one that should have taken the sniper shot, but didn't because he was silly. There is a theory that he becomes Randall the Perfected, but we all know Randall the Vandal probably became Perfected. So, Randall the Vandal, or Randall the Perfected, also dead. Again.
Rondal,
I guess. Is it Rondal or is it Randall?
It's Randall.
It's Randall.
You put the emphasis on the wrong syllable.
Oh my god. I would not be surprised if I did that. So, who else we got? We have a couple. This is an interesting one. Devil Claw. I'm curious what a Devil Claw is. I think we have a couple of them. We have Locus and Rilix. Both of them were killed again by us.
I'm assuming it's a fancy term for assassin, because aren't they the...
one of them was in the Saber Strike, and then another one... Oh, where was it? It was a patrol mission in Old Russia. So there was one who was in a strike, and then one of the random patrol missions that you get. I think it's an assassination mission. And then we have a couple splicers, obviously. Splicer Captain Kavis. That was actually one of the individuals from the Kvostov mission. And he died by us. I'm trying to think who else. Do we have another Splicer Captain? No, we had a Devil Captain, which is Ron. Okay, and then we have Ron, whatever you want to call him. Let's see. We have Archon Rising Karhis. Karhis? We killed him too. Surprise. He was another one. Like I said, there's a very common theme here. He was another one that we killed as a patrol mission in the Plaguelands. I think he's the one that we piss off with the quarantine. I think that's the quarantine patrol. He's the one that keeps getting put down. Then we have Kovic, who was the Splicer Priest from the Abomination High Strike. Guess what? We killed him too.
Sort of, yeah.
Oh, God. He needs to leave that poor ogre alone. I'm trying to think. Devil. Oh, we have Siege. Okay, there's a random Siege Engineer that apparently has a name. Mixus. He was killed in Wrath of the Machine. And then this one was an intriguing one. Naxus is a Devil Baron. And we kill him in the Devil's Lair Strike. But he wears the color of House Winter, which was fun. I'm like, I don't really...
Wait, which strike was that?
Devil's Lair. So he's a Devil Baron. He's labeled a Devil Baron in game, but his colors are that of House Winter.
So do we think it's a error or possibly a trophy?
I have no... Yeah, well, and we know... because they're trophies from the Plaguelands. Demi, I know you have...
Well, so when it comes to Naxus, this is where I start thinking back to the character model similarity between Rixus and Draxus, the Kell of Winter. And part of me thinks that at some point, Naxus might have been a Winter Baron who crossed over to Devils and, might have just kept his attire. That's the only logical way I could explain that. However, on the opposite side, I remember that Thieves' Den, which is on Venus, is it's a devil. It's an abandoned devil lair. And when I think of the Fallen that are already on Venus, I'm thinking of Winter. I'm thinking of Draxus.
Right.
So my idea, my headcanon, at least for Draxus, which I guess could be in some way used for Nexus, is that Draxus was either a Devil Archon or he must have been a high-ranking devil who, had at some point split from the main devil contingency to overtake Winter, which really should, tell the devils that they have a real serious authority issue because, then they had the Splicers come up and all this nonsense. I mean, God, they should have just went the way of exiles a long time ago, but that's my headcanon. And I think that's the only way to sort of legitimize whatever might have happened in the fact that we have Raxus and Traxus being similar character model. Because I would like to think that all of the Archons and Kells, depending on what houses they're from, would probably look in accordance to their house.
Right. Well, I mean, yeah, you would think that. Because Axor is technically the wolf Archon, but his colors aren't even the colors of kings, because he wears some sort of transparent yellow gear. Oh, that's right. Yeah.
But when you do look at high-ranking Fallen, they all pretty much look very different. Skolas does not look the same as Draxus. Draxus does not look the same as Axor, even if he has the same character model as Rixus. And for me, that's a good way for me to identify what house this person is from. So if we ever did get the Kell of Kings, I would hope that his skull structure or whatever, his mask would be very regal and ornate and something like that. Just these little things that, when you have things with the Fallen here, like Naxus being of House Winter color and still being a Devil Baron, it is a question of, is this a mistake, or are we supposed to sort of infer the reasoning behind this? And at least for Draxus's case, I feel like I've done that well enough for myself. I don't know how that would fly with anybody else, but that's my whole little those two.
I mean, the Kell of Kells is obviously going to have 10,000 arms.
He's a marvel with 10,000 arms, and they are all red and manifold. Sorry, those are two of my favorite flavor texts.
It's spiky potato. And
it's a great gun.
Don't get Justin.
That's not a gun. That's not a gun.
You know what? I'm going to say I will 1v1 any of you with George Promise.
I will go trespasser on your.
Then I will trespass all over your body. And I will leave it at that.
I don't care how
be the Crucible Assassin.
I don't care how long you hang in the air with Imperium Bellicose. I will trespass all over the place.
All right, we're gonna take us to the court.
Yeah.
The only other one is Justin's favorite devil, Saber-Tooth.
Oh, Frank the Shank. Who couldn't like him? I've actually got a question before we get too far into Saber-Tooth, because he doesn't have a name other than the one I gave him. So I've been noticing, just in looking at them all lined up, a kind of a archetype to the etymology of the names of these people. So there's some pretty repeatable suffixes in their names, or not a suffix, like the last part of their name. So you've got the names ending in IKS, and then the names that end in SIS are very repeatable, one that kind of pops up again. And then there are some unique ones, but I guess my point is, since we know how the Fallen love their class system and all, do we think the kind of the makeup of the name is indicative of any kind of like social
hierarchy?
trajectory. Yeah, kind of the hierarchy of things.
I don't
I'd
know.
say maybe.
There's a possibility. Maybe in like if you segregated it out to like the three, I guess, paths, I guess you could take, because like oh God, where was I going? So like Rixus is the Archon, Solkiss. So Rixus is SIS. Solkiss, who is the Kel, is KIS. You have Kovic, who is a Splicer Priest.
Yeah, that's a unique one, though.
Yeah, that's a unique one. You do have Axis, who is another Archon, the Archon Prime. I'm trying to see here.
A good comparison would be, and I'm trying to find it right now, looking at the names of the
Barons?
the Wolfkel.
Or the Wolfkel?
Well, because if we're having this this repetition, we have Solkiss and Rixus, and we have Draxus, and we know Skolas was a Baron before he was.
Yeah, I think.
Kel.
Yeah. Captain.
I'm sorry, he was captain before he was Kel. And I can't remember her name right now, the Wolf Kel previously. But if we could find that repetition, then yeah, we could possibly see a pattern that might match. The only issue that we have is that so many of these fallen names do end in this anyways. And for us as the player, we usually do see them as being of some sort of high rank.
So I actually had kind of a little theory on this. If you're familiar at all with Slavic name suffixes, there's a suffix, and this is the only one I'm like familiar with. I'm sure there's many, but there's one that is Ovich. So you're familiar with names, Slavic names that end in Ovich, like Ibrahimovic, right? Mm-hmm. That suffix actually means son of. So the name Ibrahimovic would actually mean son of Ibrahim. So I'm not saying that's what this is like directly. I'm just saying there might be some. Bungie's very deliberate in what they do in their naming schemes of things, and it wouldn't surprise me if the Fallen name makeup kind of portrayed something.
Yeah, no, I definitely. I'm trying to. Yeah.
even if it's not something that's, because it seems kind of improbable that the name is indicative of stature, because, well, if we're assuming that they're named at birth, there's no way to know how far they'll climb.
Well, and that's assuming that they don't change their names too.
Exactly.
That's assuming that they're not born into a class system.
Yeah, but that's the whole point of the Fallen meritocracy, right? You should be able to climb up as far as your savagery takes you, right?
Yes, but we know that by definition, or we know at least because of recent DLC, that they do have a specific sect, one being the Splicers, and at least in terms of House Judgment, we know what their entire house structure is made of. So yes, they are sort of meant to progress by themselves, and they can be as Machiavellian as they'd like to, but that may not mean that, there might be a certain group of Eliksni that are typically set on the path of being an Archon. And there might be Rixus, and there might be a captain below him that is, vying for that slot as the Archon, and who might eventually, or who would have eventually overtaken Rixus, but his path was always to be an Archon. And that's something that we don't know, and this is just purely speculation right now.
Yeah, and I always try to see the etymology in things, and that's just because that's something that interests me. Like I could be looking for something that's really not there. I mean, I was just wondering.
What? You?
Yeah.
Well, okay. So talking about Frank the Shank. You want to talk about Frank a little bit?
He's a butt face.
He's Justin's best friend.
I've never hated a strike like I have that one.
Strike's the best strike.
No, it's not.
It's the best part was we got Shankburn. So anyway, Saber 2 is a modified. Everyone knows Saber 2. He's the Strike from Fallen Saber. Or wait, that's the Strike, right? Fallen Saber.
Yeah, Fallen Saber.
Or Saber Strike. God, man, good. There's too much information in my head. So Saber 2, he was a modified Shank that was basically cobbled together by Archons out of servitor parts and random pieces of the tech that was scattered around the Cosmodrome. Basically to do one thing: to get past Rasputin's defenses and breach the firewalls so that the House of Devils could steal control of the Warsat network. So you kind of see this all happen within the Saber 2 Strike. When you're going through the stages, that's kind of what's happening. Is he's actually, like, I think there's 3 different stages, right? There's the first one where he's just kind of shooting, and then the second one, which is the chain guns, and then what's the third one? Isn't the third one when he tries to give you a hug?
Yeah,
pretty much.
Tase you.
Oh God, I hate cuddle mode.
Arcburn that week.
Oh God, Frank does not need to cuddle, but so yeah, it's basically another indicator. But the intriguing thing for me here was that they used the Shank to do this, which I guess it kind of makes sense because the Shanks have always been the pit, like they're explained as the pit bulls of the Fallen Armory, and they're basically expendable. They're not. Yes, Mystic Rose in chat. They MacGyvered a Shank. That's exactly what they did. They took a lot of duct tape and some chewing gum.
I didn't see any popsicle sticks.
That was part of the cuddle phase. Is he actually, like, he chopsticks you with the sticks. That's how he holds you. Yeah, I hated that stage, especially with Arcburn. That was absolutely just terrifying. And the holes in the floor. So, yeah, Frank the Shank was a giant pain in something that I'm not going to say. The best part was that we couldn't use Shankburn. It was like the biggest joke ever. Pain in the Axis. Good job. That's what that was. So. Oh my gosh. Yes, the chat is talking about how he's frisking people for spare parts because we've damaged him so badly. That was what the third stage was. He was just trying to take back the parts that we stole from him. But yes. Let's see. Do we want to talk at all about any of the items? I know we had some armor pieces. There was an interesting weapon that we had. The Lord of Wolves has an interesting little carving on the back of it that I would like to hear everyone's thoughts on. But before that, do you guys have any particular armor set that you guys want to talk about?
Well, I just want to very quickly say I have to look back for it now because I don't remember which one it is. I think it might be one of the Warlock bonds. And yes, it is the House of Devils Warlock bond. And the flavor text is, "What shall we call thee?" And if I remember my demonology correctly, that just alludes to how in demonology, in order to exorcise a demon,
Yes.
you need to first name it.
And you have to know its true name.
Yes, and I guess because I don't particularly play as a warlock, I never really paid attention to the flavor text of that, but I just thought that was really interesting as I was looking at it now.
Yeah, that's actually, I think that's one of my favorite ones, is because the kind of the subtle nod to the whole thing. And then it's kind of interesting because it can go two ways. It can be them saying that to the warlock, but it can also be the warlock saying that to the fallen.
Yeah, and that, I mean, for obvious reasons, that motif, does continue with the Devil's Cloak. There are some bargains worthy of any risk, which I guess we don't think of this now with the Fallen, but of making Faustian bargains and all this stuff, which I guess could be for the Fallen if I were to think long enough about it. The Traveler being there and then disappearing on them,
or what they're doing with Siva,
or exactly, or what they're doing with Siva. It's God. I love them. I love the Elixir. They're probably my favorite race in the game. But wow, talk about kicking them while they're down.
Yeah,
self-mutilating. These people just like to lose.
So yeah, and then like the Titans, both the Mark of the Devils and the Devil's Mark deal with the just the entire concept of violence and war. Mark of the Devils says, "I seek no worship, only war." And then the Devil's Mark is, "The battle never ends." Now you get these all from the Reef. Some of them you got from the Prison of Elders. Others were the later installations, and you can actually buy them from Varix. I think the House of Devils, the Devil's Cloak, and the Mark of the Devils were the Prison of Elders, and then the Devil's Bond, Devil's Disguise, and Devil's Mark were all purchasable from Varix. So, and I think I like the newer ones, the new designs. I thought were pretty kind of cool. Let's see. So that demo, or Justin, you got anything you want to talk about on armor before I?
Just that the bond could also be referring to the original creation of Siva.
Which one? The Devil's Bond.
Devil's Bond.
Yeah. Well, the what do we call you?
Oh, okay.
We're talking about, because that was also sort of a devil's bargain from the Siva fragments.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, that's true. Yeah.
Do we ever hear Axis speak to Siva in his cards?
I want to say,
or is he always speaking in some sort of third person, reflecting on himself?
Well, I think I know
part of the discussion there is always he's talking to himself about himself, but is he speaking?
Right. And my argument there would be that even though he is talking to himself, he could technically be talking to Siva, because Siva is him. Yeah. Right. Like he is and is not Siva at the same time. Because like that was a long conversation about, it goes back to the concept of, does Siva control itself, or does Siva have to be controlled? And we know that Siva has to be controlled. The problem that gets fuzzy is because Axis actually put Siva into himself. He is the controller, but he's affected by the thing that he's controlling. So which thing actually is controlling the thing that, it's like this.
So it does need a controller, but I don't know that it has to be an active controller.
Right.
Because if you look at the class armor, they're talking about, like, one of the lines directly is general poorly worded or malicious code is the fault of the programmer, not Siva itself. So
yeah. And so like
Axis might be the living program, basically.
Well, and like, so, right. And I guess the point here is that, you know, we talk about this a lot in the SIVA episode, is the difference between the command structure that Axis or whoever of the fallen splicers put in, the consume, enhance, replicate, how that differs from the command structure of Rasputin within the Iron Lords, which was, what was it? Why am I'm drawing a blank on the Rasputin command structure?
Well, the Rasputin wanted them to self-terminate at the end.
Yeah. The Rasputin had an exit path basically, and the Fallen doesn't. It creates itself, and it just like keeps. It's an endless cycle.
So this actually brings me to one of my theories about SIVA, is that I think that the inherent danger with SIVA is similar to a concept from D&D, which is never give a GM an open wish, meaning like
it's a terrible idea and you should never ever do it.
Yeah, you don't want to make a wish to a GM and leave it open because they'll screw with you and it'll backfire on you. And I think that's kind of the problem with SIVA. Back to that line about the poorly worded or malicious code. If you think about a self-regulating thing that requires no external power source and doesn't expire, degrade, or forget, like the amount of control you would have to write in a program for it to be viable is huge, right? Because if like you say, consume, enhance, replicate, that's hypothetically terrible because it's just going to go nuts. It's going to be like Oryx number 2.
Well, and that's why you get
Oryx
like
and the Vex combined.
Well, and that's why you get like the not the SIVA fragments, the clusters. SIVA clusters. That's what that's what it is. It's rampant SIVA. That's uncontrollable
it's
growth.
Like cancer, basically.
Twizzler's gone bad.
And so I think that, you know, there's the cards that talk about Rasputin trying to prevent the Iron Lords from getting in, and I think that is because Rasputin, I mean, he's shown a desire to protect his only theoretical allies before, and I think that was the same thing. I think it's like, you guys have no idea what you're working with here. Just get out of my house, get out of my tool shed, put the power saw down.
that does not have a safety switch. Put it down.
Yeah. And then once they got in, you know, you just let them deal with themselves and then locked the bunker again, I think, until the Devils, through vanilla to where we are now, slowly broke through while we ignored them.
Yeah. Well, and yeah, because that's also the argument as to why Rasputin was so much more open for us helping him, was because like we have a record of his report, and it's like they've gone up, like attempts to bypass his security protocols has gone up by like 400% in the last year. He's like, I can't complain. I have
other things to worry about. Your house is literally in between us. Could you just clean up your lawn? But yeah, so like I think he recognizes that we're valuable. I think he has terminated his protocols that he has to protect us, but I think that he's still intelligent enough to go, these are potentially valuable tools and allies, maybe even someday. So let's help each other, right? Here's Sleeper Simulant. Go kill some Thrall.
And you know, just another note on that is he actually puts a part of himself in the Sleeper Simulant, so he doesn't even trust us enough not to monitor us. He's just like, here's a GPS tracker. Don't kill yourself.
Yeah. But well, I think part of that too is also, again, if he's going to be our allies, he has to see how we operate. Right. If you're a military power and you're going to ally with somebody, you know, for some sort of mutual gain, you need to know what they bring to the table. But yeah, I don't think that he was maliciously harboring SIVA or anything when the Iron Lords broke in and he tried to turn them away. Because there's even a section where they talk about it. Him, you know, trying to talk, maybe. I think one of them's like, I think he's trying to communicate or something.
Well, yeah, because Fellwinter kept trying to communicate and he never responded. And then I think it was Colavance was like, yeah, he responded, just not with words.
Yeah. And that's an interesting thing, is that Rasputin may not be able to communicate very well anymore.
Yeah.
Because I mean, he's basically rampant, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
He was already kind of rampant. I mean,
he's marathon rampant, not Halo rampant.
You're right.
He's not thinking himself to death. He's just running him.
Well, because in Marathon it was slightly different, right? The concerns in Marathon were that they would outgrow the ability to be controlled.
It was
versus in Halo, where it's more complicated.
Yeah. It was like Halo is more about the self-destruction of the AI.
It's
Marathon
degradation of code.
Right. Marathon was the surpassing of the law of robotics, basically.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. They can't be controlled anymore because they're officially off the chain.
Right. Whereas with a Halo rampancy, it's literally the code degrades because it's too much
and they
information.
lose their mind.
And they go insane. So, but speaking of allies and the weird things that happen with allies, let's talk about the Lord of Wolves real quick. Because this is an interesting item. Regardless of what you think about the gun, it's Lord of Wolves, which, House of Wolves was the expansion that we got this in. But if you look at the gun, it actually has a House of Devils sigil carved on the back of it. And no, go for it.
So yeah, I think this is one of the more interesting things about the Fallen, is that while we know they don't harbor any necessary love for the other factions, we also have no evidence of them fighting each other. So I have, because of that symbol, I have debated whether they also still have some of their original purposes. Perhaps House of Devils is the only faction that makes weapons. And perhaps this was like a regal gift for Skolas.
Well, Lord of Wolves Well, Lord of Wolves was created by a crow, I think, right?
Was it?
Hang on, I'm trying to think.
I didn't think any of those were. I thought they were all scavenged weapons.
Yeah. Jolien. He says Jolien was a crow. He had seen much, more than most. He held the enemy's greatest weapon, remembered its burn, then began tinkering. He liked things, liked how they worked, found happiness in finding new avenues through which a thing could function. Not to alter the purpose, but simply refine it. So he didn't create it, he modified it.
Right. Yeah. So that doesn't preclude, hypothetical separation of responsibilities for the houses.
So, and then I know Demi has a couple things on the Spiked Potato and Devil's Dawn.
I almost feel insulted. No, this is like I said earlier in the episode, Devil's Dawn and Drake's Promise have two of my favorite flavor texts. And despite everything that I've said so far that could be considered spin foil, this might actually be spin foil. And I think that the flavor text of these two guns are actually taken out of some sort of Elixni prophecy or Elixni poetry. When you reread Ghost Fragment Fallen 3, you see that Skolas, or this could just be an Elixni structure of emphasis where they like to repeat things. So he says, I am the Kell of Kell, or I am the first, I am the Kell of Kells, I am the last, I am the Dreg of Dregs. And I don't know, I could be looking very much into this. But when I read, the flavor text on the Devil's Dawn, which is my arms are red and manifold, and nothing is beyond my grasp, that sounds very much like flavor text on the Dreg's Promise, which I believe also shows up in Fallen 2 at the very bottom. I am a marvel of 10,000 arms. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And for me, when I read these two flavor texts, I usually think that this is in some way in reference to the Kell of Kells, or the prophecy of the Kell of Kells that was spoken about and like you're saying in chat, House Rain did have a prophecy on the whirlwind, and as a result, the coming into being of the Kell of Kells. And so I find this very interesting because I like to look through the Fallen cards and try to see what sort of sentence structures or even word combinations are found that might be equivalent to this. And I think there is a Vandal of Vandals somewhere actually now. I left it all of the grimoire to find this. But yeah, that's usually what I think of when I'm thinking of these guns. That's, for me, it's very prophetic. And I personally do hope that we start getting these little things, because it's sort of like how when we first had Thorn and we had the 13th Understandings and Book of Sorrow, we didn't know what that was, but that was very obvious. We knew that it was coming from a source. And we've seen the line, I am a marvel with 10,000 arms, come up twice now. Because we saw it in Fallen 2, and we see it with the Dreg's Promise, which came out 2 different time periods. And again, we have similar word structures. We also know that there are just their physical traits or their symbols that are very significant for the Eliksni, and one of them is the arms, and how the docking of the arms is a symbol of humiliation, and how they, how dregs are allowed to regrow their arms, and that is a signifier of having regained a sense of self. There are certain word combinations like this is Dreg strength or something like that. That really, it feels to me like it says a lot more about who the Eliksni are and maybe how they view themselves. And just going back to, everything that we said about Varix, I mean, if Skolas is running around saying that, Skolas is great at propaganda, God bless him. If he's running around saying, I am the last, I am the Dreg of Dregs, I mean, yeah, it's going to make all the Dregs, his own people are going to look at him a certain way, but there might be truth to what he says that might be now hidden and that won't be rediscovered or has not been discovered since the abandonment by the Traveler. I don't know. For all of this is just, I need to create a compilation of Eliksni poetry and then, publish that over the next couple of years.
Well, and Dreg's Promise also talks about how the Starcatcher who would lead the Fallen, rising from the lowest station to the highest exalted peaks.
That was the thing I forgot.
Yeah. I mean, because if you think about it, I always assumed Starcatcher was the one who reacquired the Traveler. Because, the Traveler would be like a star.
Oh, you mean like the bait star catcher?
Shh, stop. You're not allowed to tempt me with that rabbit hole. That is a very, very deep spin foil conversation.
Yeah.
It's a fairy tale.
It is a fairy
You are
tale.
only one of the forearm that you are trying to keep the docked hopeful.
Yeah.
You okay with that?
I'm okay with that. I've got no qualms there. I got no quarrel. I love that, and just on a real game level, I love that sniper. Fucking Devil's Dawn. I love that thing. I didn't think I would like another sniper as much as I liked my 1,000-yard, but man, it's pretty awesome.
And I'm trying to think. That one is the one from the Siva Crisis Strike, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
You
go for it.
I just like what Libby just said in the chat. Maybe the Starcatcher is the person who finds the Kell of Kells. It's amazing how everything goes back to Varric somehow.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Yeah.
Well, because Varix also says...
Scout.
Yeah, well, Varix also says that he is the keeper of the House Rain's prophecies.
And so he would theoretically know this. He's the Sibyl for whatever remnants of Elixni are out there.
Yes.
And so if he does have access to this, to any of these prophecies that are left, he's very smart to keep them very close to his chest at the moment. We do know that Varix is trying to do several different things, and not just for the reef. He is sending out the crows to go find the Kell of Kells, and what that means could be 100 million things. But
that is very no. We're not. Varix there,
he's
Osiris?
not. No, because he's around, Libby.
No, because if he would have known about what the spices were doing beforehand.
Exactly.
Because clearly Osiris, who I can't stand, by the way, knows everything and
I
does
forgive
nothing.
you. It's okay. So the only other item that I had marked here was the Devil's Due Breaker BKR. This is when we were talking about the ships and the jump ships, especially with the Guardian vehicles, we actually did not mention these, but these are all refurbished blockade runners. We got them from Prison of Elders, and they were, I want to say the BKRs were, I think, all the houses, right?
Yeah.
We had wolves.
Yeah.
I know we had wolves, and I know we had devils, and I'm pretty sure we had winter. No, we had kings.
Yeah.
That's the one I was thinking of.
Kings. Yeah.
Cold Snap, Kingslayer, Wolf Hunter, and Devil's Due. And Cold Snap was winter. So
the winter.
Yeah. So
BKR stands for Be Kind, Randall. That's what it stands for.
I think it means blockade runner, but okay.
Yeah, it means
No. I'm gonna have to fight you two on this one.
God.
It's
Anyways,
on.
I think the blockade runners are actually kind of cool looking. They look like what you would expect a blockade runner would look like. And then, it's just basically the flavor text is a refurbished blockade runner customized with the fallen House of Devil sigil, given as trophy to those who brave the Prison of Elders. So, not a huge source of trivia information there. The only other thing that I had was the idea from chat that the devils were not the first to encounter Siva. And I think they were using Taniks as a possible kind of example of someone who had encountered the Siva or the nanotechnology like Siva.
I think that doesn't jive with me, because I think that Siva is supposed to tie in with all those original Earth missions where the devils are looking for something.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it was Siva. And like I said, I think that we basically went, oh, I guess we're done here because we've done a little bit, and we let them find Siva.
Because we didn't clean our lawn.
Yeah. We jumped off to the moon, and
I just love that. I love it. Hey, your house is between us.
Literally between us. Just clean your lawn.
Yeah.
I would also think that if Taniks had access to Siva earlier, the Vanguard, specifically Saladin, would have sent us after him earlier, since we do know that Taniks was the one who killed Andal Brask.
That's a fair point. Yeah, that's a fair point.
And instead, we're sent after Traxxas first. And, Cade progressively sent us after, more high-ranking targets of the Fallen. So I think if he did have access, we would have known about it. And, he might have been priority number one, even before anything else that might have happened on Earth.
Yeah, that's a fair point. And like I said, this was obviously I was out for vacation last week, so I was only able to check in a couple times. But that was one of the topics that I did catch, and I was like, oh, that's an interesting. So I wasn't able to catch the full conversation, but I know that they had talked about it briefly. So I think that's everything for me. We did see, we did not mention this. I did want to mention this. Damo, I know you and I were talking about this a little bit in chat. The idea that the kings control the devils. It is not black and white confirmed, but it's pretty heavily implied.
Yeah, I definitely think that they're at least manipulating them. I don't know if they have direct control.
Right.
But from what we know, the kings are the CIA of the fallen world, and I think that they're definitely manipulating them.
The devils
I think they're manipulating everybody.
Are blood crazed war profiteers. So I mean, to think that you could manipulate them wouldn't be that hard, right?
Basically, yeah.
I don't think it would be that hard at all for someone with the wherewithal of the kings.
Right.
So
and
I'm with that.
I mean, like, even Aldrin kind of makes that point within the card Paskin King Baron. He says, look at it from the House of Kings perspective. Their power is matched only by their cleverness. They ruled the devils from the shadows and came too close to toppling the city not once but twice. We don't know much about them, but we know this. The kings want the traveler. And then, and then he goes on to, so why wouldn't they give it all up?
Yeah.
Why would they give it all up just because some outsystem wolf runs in calling himself Kel of Kells? The answer is they wouldn't. So, yeah. We know that Varix is looking for the Kel of Kings because they're really, really well hidden. So...
Yeah, and to respond to Libby in chat, are the devils acting as a mercenary army for the kings? Not intentionally.
Right.
The devils are Goram Reavers. I mean, they're not doing anything.
I think they're a little bit more organized than the Reavers.
Yeah.
Just a little bit. Just a little bit.
I mean, they obviously had a lot of organization because they found Siva, found out where it is, and traveled to Mars to figure out where it was stored, and then found it and used it. Right?
Well, and I mean, they're also like...
I guess my point is you can make the devils be your mercenary army without them being aware of it.
Oh, yes. Yeah, and I think that's definitely the case.
Demi, I think Demi or Damo made a reference to Machiavelli earlier, and that's when I hear that name, I think kings.
He did.
What?
Nothing.
What did I do?
No, not you,
Justin. Nothing happened.
Yeah. So I mean, the other thing is with the devils is, I mean, they are one of the largest houses. Right, they're rivaled only by House Winter as far as size. So,
well, I mean, rest in peace, Winter.
Yeah, true, and rest in pieces, devils too.
Well, we know the devils. We don't.
Go ahead.
So, as far as we know, Winter doesn't exist anymore, right? Because Skolas beat us there and took over that faction. So. Right. Hypothetically, as we murdered the vast majority of the wolves, we were also murdering whatever was left of Winter.
Oh, yeah. Okay, fair enough. Yeah.
Like, they're still on Venus, but in the story, they shouldn't really be anymore.
Well, unless they're just they're just the remnants of it.
Yeah,
in the same capacity that devils and
right, who also shouldn't really be there.
Fair enough. I see where you're going with this. Okay. Touché, sir. So, let's see. The only other trivia that I can think of for House of Devils is they were responsible for the destruction of London during the, what was that, post collapse. So, Bife, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
These are the ones that you should blame. And that was actually, we learned that from one of the, I think it was just the idol, the quotes from Lakshmi 2. I think it was just one of the quotes that she says while you're standing around her. I don't remember if that's an actual quote from a quest, because I am not a member. I am not a member of the Rainbow Death Squad.
Ask me. I could help you out. Which quote are you talking
I'm
about?
trying to think. Hang on. It's one of the ones that she was talking about her past.
She was there when the House of Devils burned London.
Yeah.
That's one of the notable ones, like the only one that comes to mind when I think House Devils.
No, not to interrupt a thought here, but if we are to think that every house, the size of every house currently is the same size as they were during the Whirlwind, House of Devils is massive.
I don't think they are as big as they were.
I think they're decimated.
No, or I'm sorry. I don't mean they currently are as big as they were.
Oh, but proportionally.
The fact that there are still so many. The House of Devils was a massive house back when the Elixni were at their prime, it seems.
Well, that's actually part of what makes me think that they might be the manufacturing house, the worker force almost. Which is why their sigil might be on other weapons, like the Lord of Wolves.
See, I can think that only insofar as they would manufacture weapons of war, because that seems to be their tree.
Well, but we don't know what changed in between now and then. Perhaps they didn't, but now they do, because that's all they know how to do, or all they want to do.
They were the House of Angels before, and after the Whirlwind, they were the House of Devils.
Well, they did fall.
And we don't know.
Yes!
And we actually don't know that these names are their original names, because the original names, the only two ones that we know of that existed
Kings.
before the Whirlwind, are the Kings, which is somewhat different than the rest of the names, and Stone and Rain.
And
Right.
Judgment.
Star.
And Judgment. But
No,
those don't match up.
Judgment.
I don't think Scar... Did Scar exist before? I thought Scar came about...
Scar.
No. We don't know that Scar existed before. We just know that it existed.
Yeah.
Which
And then there
Scar
was-
matches Winter and Wolves and Devils in being a much harsher terminology than Stone and Rain and Kings.
Yes, and as for Kings, they were named because they were.
Which might just mean that they were nobles, doesn't necessarily mean...
No, yeah, exactly, and that's.
But-
what's the best way to translate that into?
Right.
Well, but even
and
if they
that's-
didn't translate it, it might be that their name is not a new name. Maybe they kept their old name, and other ones, as they fell into their new ways, they, renamed or rethemed their houses.
Yeah, it's very possible that new houses sprang from the collapse. I mean, it's not only possible; it's probable, because that's a game changer, and ideologies change. I mean,
Yeah.
kind of you can turn from a noble into a devil really quick when you're faced with survival.
Well, yeah, because
being-
in Varix, that's exactly what he was talking about. He's like, judgment's gone, others were slaughtered and slain, death and docking, lost to pride and rage. He's talking about like the period after the Whirlwind, that ripped away their past. He says, all honor lost, all hope. Judgment was not enough. Cannot keep wolves from kings, Scar from winter. Fell to fighting, fell to hate. He's talking about that whole thing is exactly what it was this noble race. They had their foundation just destroyed. And their response was
I can't help but think of the House Devils as the Apache Indians of the collapse. They're just the most savage.
Evidently,
What's that?
you said most savage, and I just have Skolas in my mind.
No, I'm talking about the collapse. Skolas came about later.
Well, but we don't know that. We know that they're that savage from our perspective now, but we don't know that that's always the way it is. And also, you have to think that realistically, if the story is to be believed, we had almost no experience with winter or exiles until we broke rules and went to the moon. And the kings are essentially a non-entity. I mean, they exist and their influence is huge, but they're not the ones rampaging the city and killing people trying to come in and stuff
and
like that.
Making bone forts.
Yeah. Like, it might not be that the devils are that much worse than the other factions. It might be that they're perceived as that because they're right in our grill.
Yeah.
Well, two things then. I believe and I think it might have been Justin who said it, with the changing of ideologies allowing for the introduction of new houses, I think that might explain why we have certain fallen of different house attire being affiliated with different houses, because they might not have agreed with what the regime was within their own house and might have switched over. There's definitely better ways to say that. But like Naxxus, for example, Naxxus could have been one who didn't follow the original regime of Winter before Draxus took over, and all of that might have coincided. Or even Axor. I mean, Axor has colors we've never seen. The only other Fallen who has such unique colors that we know of is Taniks. So, it's entirely possible. And yeah, like House Scar. House Scar no longer exists because it fell to infighting with House Winter, I believe.
Yes.
And Winter ended up pretty much exterminating House Scar, as far as we know. So,
well, and it was like everything.
The only remnant possibly being Taniks, if you ask me. That's a whole other.
Oh, I see where you're going with that. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, but just picture people who are scattered into the low orbit, of their home planet, following their collapse, their whirlwind. Wouldn't these kind of houses, the new houses, not the traditional houses, wouldn't they kind of form themselves somewhat just through proximity? You would pick up assets as you went. You'd pick up people as you went. You would just try to build numbers that way.
Yeah.
I mean, sure, you would. There would be an exodus. There would be house-specific exoduses, but I think it would be kind of an organic, like, evolving thing. Like, I don't think it would be like, we're all House Scar and we're leaving our planet right now and we're going to stay together and it's just going to be us. I think it'd be like, I actually let's all band together.
I actually think it could very well have been that way, because remember, we don't know anything about their collapse.
Mm-hmm.
Right. We don't.
It does say that they were scattered.
It does say they were scattered, but we don't know what that means exactly. And there's some indication that Oryx is the one who scattered them. Because there's a gun. Well, there's a gun in his raid from the whirlwind. So.
Oh, Mita?
No. Chelchis. Yeah, the scout rifle, Chelchis's.
Oh, yeah, it is Chelchis's. Yeah, where's the Great Machine?
Talks about the Great Machine. So there's some indication that he was there, so somehow they lived through that. So it seems very aberrant compared to some of the other collapses and crazy stuff we've seen.
Mm-hmm.
So,
which remind me, Chelchis was stone, right?
Yeah, he was the Kell of Stone.
Yeah,
and also sounds like the leader.
The ideal.
Yeah, I think he was kind of an Arthurian figure of their race.
He is their Saladin.
Yeah. So I do think that the house is probably, unless, like Demi said, is very likely that they morphed. But I think that they probably did try to stick together because they are very traditionalist, and they or at least they were.
Yeah. I'm trying to
or like you, guys said, maybe some still are. And that's probably most evident through Varix and possibly through the kings.
Yeah.
And perhaps maybe the isolationist behavior of the kings might be on account of the actions of the rest of the houses.
It could be,
Which,
though. There's
again, it doesn't take away from the fact that they clearly have some sort of influence on all the houses, because the kings have territories in Venus. They have territories on Earth. There's no reason to think that they wouldn't be manipulating whatever is left of the Eliksni power structure, with the exclusion of exiles, because they are who they are. They're exiles. They'll come into the fold when they need be, or if kings are very desperate. But kings could just be very traditional, and that's how they're doing it. So especially when you look at some of the old cards with Rezel, we don't know who those fallen are, but we know they're fallen, and we know they're led by Kel. They could either be the earliest contact with any of the modern houses of which we know of. They could be the remains of another fallen house of which we don't. Who's to say they weren't of some final contingency of Scar or something like that? I mean, we really don't know a lot. We don't know about their homeworld. We don't know about what their life was before the Traveler, and we really don't even know what it was like during, their time under the Traveler. All we know of is what we have as the player and what we've gotten in Grimoire, which really isn't much.
Yeah, and to go back to the talk about the scatter with regards to the departure pattern, I guess you would call it. There is actually a bit of information in the Grimoire that talks about the Ketch, and these are the massive starships that we do see in game. We know from the Fallen General Grimoire that these are just like giant ships that are capable of intersystem travel, and that they arrived on them in the wake of the collapse, which is part of the whole bombing of London and the pillaging of just basically human civilization. But we also know that these ships tend to be they seem to be unique to houses. We have there's a supposed splicer ship for the House of Devils, but we haven't seen anything in game for it yet. Excuse me. But we do know the winter ship Simic Fel and the wolf ship Calyx Sin and wolf ship Orbix Fel. And so these are all ships that were very specific to houses. And so it's not, and Justin, this is kind of in regards to, what you were talking about. It actually is possible that houses were because I perceive houses to be a very feudal system. There's a very clear hierarchy, and the entire Fallen structure that we experience is very kind of feudal. Like they have different levels and stuff like that. And each level kind of pays tribute to the level above in a way, but then the Kel also is responsible for maintaining and taking care of those below him, much like a monarch would have been. But it's a very feudal type or tribal kind of concept. And so in that type of situation, it would make perfect sense for the Kel of let's say the House of Winter to be like, the world is falling apart. We have catches. Everyone on board. If you can't get on board, sorry, we'll see, good luck. And they just do a mass exodus, and that could be the scatter. The scatter could have been literally the houses just going as fast as they could to get off planet, right? Yeah. And so what I'm saying there is so you could have actually a combination. We were talking about that in chat a little bit. Is it possible the Devils existed as a house before? Yeah, it's possible. It's also possible that the Devils were the Fallen that were left behind. The noble houses fell. The angels became devils. the viciousness that we see in the devils, that we hear about in the devils, could be simply because these are the, not to make a pun here, but these are the dregs of the Elixni civilization that were left behind. And so they had to fall to this viciousness. They had to fall to this stuff. But you could also, I mean, and the thing is like a lot of this is inferred, obviously, but you can also assume that about just about any of the fallen. I mean, the thing about the fallen is that they are survivors. That is the entire point. You know, and you guys were talking about it before too, the translation of the house names. I remember somewhere in the game them talking about the house wolves. That was actually commented. Like, it's not like in the fallen or in the Elixni tongue, it's not wolves, but it was like a translation. Because Varix actually comments when he talks about this with the different different houses. He says, you know, House Winter attacks, House Devils plot, House Kings plan, House Wolves circle. And then he says House Judgment waits. So like each of these, and that's kind of more in line with what Damo's, you know, been saying, is like each of these houses seem to have a certain niche within the society. And there's different responses based off those niches. And if you understand that, then also even when you're reduced to your base level instincts, generally a lot of these things are ingrained. And that would make sense that even in the most dire of times, a degree of that would remain. I mean, it's not going to be as refined, obviously, but
that... No, sorry.
No. I was done. Go for it.
I was just going to say that actually that whole dynamic there about all the plotting and the scheming and the you know, that might belie the fact why they got left.
Right.
You know,
right.
We were actually able to conquer our faction war. You know what I mean? I mean, there's definitely a sort of cold war, not necessarily a war, but just like there's definitely a struggle for interests and power, but maybe that kind of is indicative of why they were scattered, in that the traveler was like, okay, you can't get your you know, your house in order, no pun intended, I'm out.
Right. And I would hesitate to say that simply because the traveler stayed before that happened with us. I think we were talking about, was that in general Destiny lore, Damo, that we were talking about, like the cyclical break, where it's like the traveler, so like the cycle.
We broke the traveler's pattern. Yeah.
Well, but did we, or did the traveler break its pattern? You know,
like
Rasputin. He didn't. But I mean, but that would be my rebuttal to that particular aspect would be like, you know, the traveler left, whether that was because it ran away, whether it was because it was chased away, we don't know. We do know that it left, and that was again through the doom of Chelchis, you know, when he's like screaming, "Where's the great machine?" and as he's facing the maw, it abandoned them for some reason. The difference for us as Guardians and as humanity is it didn't abandon us. It actually fought back. So it broke the cycle in a way. So, but yeah, before I go too far down the Rasputin traveler debate, I want to think, did I cut off anybody? Did anyone have anything that I missed from the chat or from this whole topic?
No, I think we managed to hit the devils pretty good and also expand on a bunch of Elixni.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, yeah,
lore that we didn't get to last time. So
Demo, you got anything more? I mean, I know you do, but anything?
Oh yeah, no, no. I think we mostly covered it. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how things progress from here on out with the Fallen.
Oh yeah, agreed. I agree completely. Demi, what about you? Did you have anything pressing that we needed to?
No, I think you let me talk far more than I deserved.
Not at all. Not
That's
at
how
all.
I always feel.
Well, okay. I guess, yeah, final comments or shout outs. Damo, you got any Dregs Live Matter?
Well, obviously the cause needs to be mentioned, but other than that, I think I'm good.
Demi, what about you?
No, nothing. I'm excited for our book club that we're going to be starting soon, and
Yes.
just heads up to anybody who enjoys Tolkien, obviously, and enjoys listening to podcasts. There is a very easy podcast you guys can listen to. It's called the Tolkien Road podcast. Excuse me. And the two hosts just do a very layman's read through of chapters. I think now we are on the Two Towers finally. We have completed Fellowship of the Ring, and I say we because I contribute poetry to their podcast. So if you guys want to listen to that podcast and you guys are excited for the book club, then definitely check it out and submit some haikus if you guys want. But yeah, that's it for me. If you guys want to talk to me, just see me on Twitter.
Yeah, or bug him in the Discord server.
Yeah, I'm always here. Most of the time, I just lurk unless I find something interesting.
Good stuff. Well, my shout outs are email us. The topic for next week is going to be the Vex strikes. So if you guys have any thoughts on those or questions on those, I know we've had a couple really good conversations in the chat with those strikes. We'll be talking about that next week. We are trying to finalize the schedule for our Extra Lore episode. It's looking like it's going to be early next week, but we're just waiting for final confirmation on that. So obviously, if you have any emails for that, the topic is going to be Mass Effect. So send us emails on that as well. And then, just be sure to vote. The poll is up and it is going for the weekend for next topic for Focus Fire, as well as the next month of Extra Lore. So both of those polls are up. If you can, please be sure to cast your vote just one way or the other on those. And then, yeah, again, the book club that the moderators have actually, this is another thing that they threw together.
So awesome.
It was a great idea, and I was pleasantly surprised. I came back from being pretty much out of internet, and I was like, oh, okay, cool. They're
doing this.
Yeah, they're doing this. It's going to be on the Discord server, and they are tackling the Fellowship of the Ring for the month. It's going to start in January 1st, and they're going to do, I think the idea is to do one book a month, and it's, I think, any science fiction or fantasy. If you have any questions, just jump into the Discord server and tag a moderator and ask. I think it's the Fellowship of the Ring. I think it's prologue through chapter 5 will be the first week. I think they broke it up into quarters, so it's one quarter a week, basically. Mm-hmm. But yes,
it was actually meant to be consumed as 5 books. So
yeah, no biggies there. So be sure if you are at all interested in that. We are not going to have a podcast on the book club. I don't think I can manage that much preparation. But yeah, we will definitely.
If it ever makes a Heinlein shift, I will strike until we do a podcast.
Oh my gosh, there might be a podcast. We'll see.
Yeah.
I might die of sleep deprivation, but whatever it takes to make Justin happy, right?
Right. You got to keep the talent happy. So, and she left. But no, no. So is it my turn?
Yeah, it's your turn.
What's going on?
Yeah,
okay, cool. So just real quick, really big shout out to our mod team. So awesome that you guys, you think we do some work getting this thing together and keeping it rolling. And I know Blue does a lot more than me, but this mod team is insane. Like, you guys are awesome. Like, Green-Eyed Music Lover, Pins Halo, Unisys, Damo, Alt, or Chocolate Shark as we know her.
Chocolate Shark.
Libby and Rhino. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the wonderful gift of the Grimoire book that I received, and also the wonderful gift of your friendship and of your contribution. You've been awesome, every single one of you. And not so much a shout out, but just kind of a general statement. If you heard kind of my little public service announcement at the beginning of the episode, I'm completely serious that I have an open door policy, and it was only really through some really special people making themselves available to me and talking me through things, and one of them being Blue, actually, and really being there and being supportive of me that allowed me to kind of get my house in order, so to speak. So if you have questions, concerns, anything bugging you, don't hesitate to DM me. Contact me on Twitter, Discord, whatever. Holler. I'm always willing to listen. So, and also big shout out to Demi and Damo for being awesome guest hosts as always. And that's it.
Well,
really long shout out for me. As usual.
Really. You got anything else? You sure?
No, I'm good.
Okay. And again, to repeat, like we said in the pre-show piece, all of the hosts on the podcast and all the moderators really in the Discord server have the same open door policy. If there's anything going on, regardless of if it's in chat or in real life, let us know through a private message, through an email, through a Twitter message, whatever, however you feel most comfortable talking to us. We've had a couple conversations with a number of people throughout the time that we've had the honor of being here, and it's always an honor, and it's always a pleasure to help wherever we can, however we can, whether that is to listen, whether that is to give advice, for those who think that we know what we're doing, we don't. We're guessing just as much as everyone else, but it's by coming together that people can figure things out like this. And so I am 100% dead serious. If there is anything that is going on in your life or in the chat or anything, do not hesitate. Do not feel uncomfortable reaching out and letting one of us know. We will do everything in our power to help you guys. So that is kind of, it is especially, not to get too mushy here, but that is especially what I feel like my job is for this community and for every community that I'm a part of. So it's not anything that anyone should feel is a burden at all. But with all that, we'll begin to wrap the chat up. Thank you again to those over on Twitch for coming to spend the evening with us. If you'd like to join us, please be sure to give us a follow over on twitch.tv/FocusFireChat. Links to all our sites can also be found with our episode archives over on www.focusfirechat.com. Thank you again, Damo and Demigod, for jumping into chat. I will post your information on the show notes so that anyone who wants to continue the conversation can reach out to you on Twitter. And then also, like we said, we're all in the Discord server as well. Please be sure to email us at focusfirechat@gmail.com with any feedback or questions concerning the podcast, and let us know how we're doing by giving us some feedback on iTunes or through that email as well. Be sure to check out our partner podcast within the Guardian Radio Network over on theguardiansofdestiny.com. So, until next time, focus your fire and may your light shine bright. So as part of the holidays, the moderator team got together, completely unknown to any of us, and sent the hosts of the podcast a gift. The condition was we couldn't open them until all of us had gotten them and were on air. I'm super proud of Justin, especially. I know how hard it was for you to wait, buddy.
Big ups for me.
Good job. So we want to open them one at a time, so that the audio doesn't get all jumbled, because I know we might have some screaming from Justin here.
Oh, yeah.
So, Mel?
Oh, boy.
Mel?
Oh, boy.
Ladies first.
What? What is this bull-pecky?
That did not offend you. That did not just offend you.
No, I'm not offended, but I feel like as like the newest member of the show that I should go last.
Yeah, but ladies first.
Ladies first.
Dang it.
We're both from Texas, ma'am.
Well, why, thank you, Justin. I was just so proud of you. All right. So I feel everyone should know that since I live all the way on the West Coast, which is the best coast, by the way.
Oh, God.
That mine got, Blue was nice to send it to me, but I was unaware of what level of opening that I had was allowed. So I literally took the box that he shipped it in and put it under my tree. And there it has sat since I got it, literally the day after we did our last podcast.
That was the best message. That was, but you know how I said this? Yeah, I just got it. Justin, I think nearly died.
His head, palm.
I told you. I anticipated it because that's the type of luck I have. It should also be fully aware that my mom's maiden name is Murphy, so like Murphy's law applies double to me. I'm just gonna put that out there. Okay. Anyways, enough talking. All right. So here, I'm gonna try to get the sounds as much as possible through the mic. Oh gosh, this is.
Don't kill yourself.
All right. So far, okay. I see newspaper. Oh, is this newspaper from Blue Land?
This is nice newspaper.
Oh, it's Kansas City Business Journal.
Okay.
This is exciting.
Good job, Kasheen mailed this out, so kudos to her.
Okay. All right. I see a book-like object. Okay, it's black leatherette, and I'm opening Laybook. Ooh, so there is a focused fire chat set of stickers. That's pretty awesome. Actually, 2 sets of stickers. And then it has this really, really awesome to the awesome podcast host of Focus Fire Chat, and we have a bunch of the mods have put their own little blip on there. And I'm going through the rest of it. Oh my gosh. So is this like an actual thing of lore cards? Is this for real? Did they actually like go and do the thing? Holy crud, guys.
So
this is like a Grimoire Bible.
Yeah, kind of. It's got so fair warning. I actually had to open all of them to get Mel hers. So I've actually seen it.
Traitor.
I opened it because, well, I came back from a vacation and Mel's zombie dog is very happy.
Zombie dog.
But I came back and I saw a giant box on the doorstep and I was like, oh no, because I didn't know how long it had been there. And so I went ahead and opened it and I was like, and then I had a note from Uni and he was like, hey, message me when you get this. Don't open it any further. I was like, all right. Messaged him. And so like I had gotten Mel's and then I have one for Willie that I'll be shipping out here shortly as well. So I've seen some of it. So with that being said, and also fair warning, the stickers that Mel was talking about, we will have those at Guardian Con. Those were the stickers that we brought. Those were the stickers that we brought from Destiny to Destiny Community Con that we forgot about because we're super good about this stuff.
Don't say we. Don't say we.
That I forgot about it. So those actually we sent Mel. That was from Kashin and I. We sent her a set of those. Okay, Justin, flowers are second.
All right. That's knife audio. Shing. Okay, so what I've got here is the actual cardboard box. So it has not been monkeyed with at all.
Much to his dismay.
Much to my dismay. Holy balls, Kashin.
I think yours was from Uni.
Okay, yeah, it was from Uni.
Okay.
Crap, Uni. Yeah, and it's got a shipping label that says ship to an awesome host, Justin Sane, or Justin Stroop, sorry, because that's not my legal name. Yeah, still working on that. And he went with the standard brown, like butcher's paper almost.
He really didn't want you getting in there.
I don't know. The Kansas City newspaper was really good.
Oh, he put like the really big bubble wrap in there. Sorry, one sec. Okay, that's the only two. And it has a yellow post-it on it that says Justin. Oh wow. It's to the awesome podcast host of the Focus Fire chat. And it's got Uni, Damo, Uni, Sal, or Pins, Alt, Libby, and Rhino have all given little blurbs about why they love this community and why they're, thankful for some reason, thankful for me. Wow.
Okay, so here's the cool thing. You won't get to hear me opening my box because it's already open. But if you look at, yes, it is an amazing little booklet of Grimoire cards. But if you look at the back, go to the back.
Mm-hmm. All right, going to the back.
Mm-hmm.
What's your last page?
My last page is Ward and Yorn related items.
My last page is it's a repository of Ahamkara related armor.
I have a feeling that these are here for a very specific reason.
And then mine is
because they know us very well.
Right. Mine's the Seraph Armory. So then if you go like a couple cards back, you'll see a couple, like depending on the topic, you're going to see different cards up to the point where you will get to your class and subclasses.
Oh, so Lord Galleon. Yes.
This is really, really freaking. I was looking through this and I'm like, this is all the lore that I like, and this all has hunter lore.
Yeah, this is like tailor made.
Yes.
This
yeah.
took a lot of work. I'm
I'm thoroughly impressed and beyond grateful.
promised myself I wasn't going to cry.
Don't
promise to myself I'm going to break. I break promises to myself all the time. This is amazing, guys. Thank y'all so much.
This is really amazing. Thank you so much. You know what I'm actually going to do? I am going to customize the front of this and actually make it look like a book. Like,
so
you know what I
we're
mean?
hearing is we're going to send all our books to Mel.
Yeah.
And paint them. Because I paint is one of my jobs. That's actually like my other job that I do as I teach.
Oh,
so
do you distress things?
I do distress things. That's the costuming thing talking. But I actually, my other job is actually where I go and I teach people to paint.
Okay, cool. So I distress people, but it's the same thing.
But you don't distress me, so you must not be that good at that job.
No. Thank you again, guys. This is amazing. Yes. Thanks, Damo, and thank you to all the rest of the mod team. Green Eyes, Pins, Uni, Alt, or Mako Chocobo, whichever one you like. Libby and Rhino. Thank you so much. Chocolate Shark to everyone in the know. Thank you guys so much.
Yeah,
so
these are really awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, these are amazing. And like I said, I have Willie's, and Willie will be getting his. I don't want to spoil his, but it's just as awesome as everyone else's. So
I got the Future War Cult banner across the top of the front page. It's cool.
Yeah, I have the Omen, the one that I have on chat.
Yeah, mine's the one that's on chat too, which is the Night Stalker one for the.
Yeah, I'm blown away, guys. So thank you so much.
The attention to detail on it is amazing. That you guys are able to like figure out, like, you know, this remembering what type of icons that we like to use, and remembering like our well, it's not hard to remember our classes because Justin and I kind of throw it in everyone's face. But I mean.
It's not our fault.
I mean, we're just hunters. That's what do you expect?
Green-eyed in chat. We specifically stalked all of you and handpicked cards and shaders and envelopes.
Well, it is appreciated. This is the one and only time
nothing less.
I know, though. You'll hear me say, "I appreciate your stalking abilities." A+, 4 stars all around.